OTB AM.
The Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball.
All right, let's get down to business. It's 7:30 and it's Tuesday morning. We have a full house with us. Shane, good morning to you.
Good morning, how are things?
Colin is also here.
Hi, Ger. All right, yeah.
Whoa. Bringing the big column energy this morning. What are you laughing at?
I just thought it was funny. That's all. Nice top. We were
Thanks very
talking
much.
about the 27 Club before we started. I don't know if that was related.
All right.
Janis Joplin, yeah.
Yeah.
You didn't know that the song you were singing, you weren't aware it was by Janis Joplin?
Well, I mean, I was just singing it, you know. It's,
Yeah, she's one of the 27 Club.
That's a look behind the curtain. Ger likes to sing to get us all in the mood.
vocal exercises.
Oh, sorry, that's what
Vocal
it is.
soup.
Yeah.
It clearly doesn't work, as there's a little croak in my voice this morning for some reason.
Same as.
You look more tanned today.
Oh, there you
the
go.
green works
Well, the
out,
lights aren't very good on my seat for some reason.
Very bright.
So, yeah,
Anyway, we've a studio decked out. Different story today than it was yesterday.
can't really see the line, can you?
The watch line. Fitbit.
Oh yeah, oh look at that, yeah.
The whoop. Yeah.
Would you lie in the sun, or would you get
No.
tanned by walking around? Yeah.
No.
I couldn't see you having the patience to lie in the sun.
Well, I actually read some books for the first time since I had kids on holidays.
Books
It was
plural.
Yeah.
On a holiday.
Yeah. Killing Thatcher. Hard recommend.
Right.
All right.
Very, very good book.
Okay.
And the new Mark O'Connell book, A Thread of Violence. Also a hard recommend. And A Football Man, which was like a classic football book from 1968, which is astonishingly good.
Oof.
If you're interested in anything about football history. Bobby Charlton smoked 30 a day.
No way.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Was that common back then, though?
Well, I mean, obviously Bobby Charlton was like suppressing all of the Munich stuff, which he
Yeah.
never spoke about.
Yeah.
But was like one of the fastest players in the league.
I wonder if associated him with speed.
Again,
Thought he was a kind of a controller of
It's a
games.
discreet kind of speed when you watch full videos. Wasn't
Did you read 3 books in 2 weeks?
2 2/3. I've still got like 3 or 4 chapters left of a football.
Oh, to anyone. That's very impressive.
It's great. You're not going on holidays to talk to people, do you?
No, definitely not.
Football Man book. I'm just going to try and find it. No, it's John Giles. What comes up when it's Football Man? It's the Football Man. Anyway, talk amongst yourselves there for a
No,
second.
I never heard of it. Never heard of it.
The Football Man, People and Passions in Soccer, Arthur Hopcraft. Again, a hard recommend. Look, we should be talking about the stuff that's going on, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
100%. I know
You're claiming reflected glory in the Republic of Ireland team who are going to take the field.
So the Connolly family, so Megan out there, and of course Luke, the Cork player as well, talking about College Corinthians, the club that they both played for growing up. So there's a great team photo of the squad out in Australia of the jerseys that they all would have worn at their respective clubs when they were starting off playing. And obviously for me, Connolly stands out in mind because that was my club, College Corinthians. But it's a brilliant interview by Owen Cormagan, and just how much their dad Mick played a huge role in getting girls football involved and started, to be honest, in Corinthians in as recently as 2008. So Megan used to join her brother Luke to Saturday morning football, and I remember that scene in Corinthians. You'd have like seemingly hundreds of kids in this one pitch, and it was all boys. And then Megan, I think in about 05, 06, started joining with Luke, and was so good that when they had captains, they were picking Megan first. They're like, this girl is extraordinary. But that had a limited period of sustainability. So after a couple of years, she wasn't able to share the dressing room with the boys, so they had to do something about it. And Mick took it upon himself to start a girls' team and to see if there was any interest. The Connolly family made flyers themselves at home.
Oh, yes.
And so hilariously, Luke described it as child labour, but Mick says no, it was an innovative business model that we actually did. And they put the flyers around the local schools, and all the schools named here, all schools around my parts, and it was a huge success. And Megan was involved in the first official girls team, and they were winning honour after honour.
I love seeing the jerseys of all their original clubs. You kind of forget that they all started somewhere. I know it seems a stupid thing to say, but like literally the fact that these clubs get recognised is so important, because the men's team did it a few years ago, didn't they?
With the League of Ireland teams, yeah.
Yeah, like, which is a brilliant idea. And I'm sure they took this photograph before they went off to Australia. I think.
Yeah, I think so.
But yeah, it's a really nice thing to kind of recognise and mark the teams, because they probably don't get the recognition they deserve. They're all so proud, and it's nice that they're all different jerseys. I don't think there's two of the same club, is there?
No, they have the club's name as well in the top. But this is remarkable too, and actually we talked about this, so it is more recent than I thought. So Megan's team, they played full pitch at a very young age, 4-4-2 full pitch. This is 11-a-side adults pitch, so the goalkeepers be like little dots in the goal. They were still doing that. I thought that would have been gone by my time, but anyway, they got over that, and they there's a great line here. John McHale, who's the Evening Echo, or the Echo now as it's called, the sports editor, he wrote a report about one of Megan's team's finals, Corinthians against Wilton United, and he said it's the closest thing I've ever seen to being a one-woman side.
Right.
She scored 2 goals herself in that match, and the game went to penalties, and she stood in goal for the penalties and saved all 3 from Wilton. Just a superstar athlete, the whole family.
That is pretty good.
All-rounder.
It is going to be one of those things where, as the tournament rolls on, people start to make more and more connections with the team, and it's interesting because Neil O'Riordan has a piece today in The Sun where he's writing about how the government have committed to up to an extra $500,000 funding for grassroots women's football. And in the same papers today, we're reading about how they're going to spend 12 to 14 million redeveloping their stadium, Park Talton, in Navan, and how Peter Fitzpatrick has stepped down, it appears, as the chair of Louth, because Louth have not been given the go-ahead to maybe I'll get those figures wrong, maybe Meath are spending more than that. Meath are raising something like 13 million from the the bit where people can buy Irish passports if they invest in Ireland. The system is now closed, but I think if you got in under the wire, you were allowed to keep your money. It looks like we're uncertain about whether or not Louth have the finances to continue with theirs. That's certainly what's coming across in the papers today. But just the amount of money that's slushing around Irish sport and not going to women's football, like $500,000 is what we're going to give to celebrate the fact that we've just reached the World Cup, where it's a clear opportunity. And yet the FAI's audit, as Neil Reardon points out today, suggests that up to 35% of women's football facilities don't include toilets. But we've loads of money for redeveloping GAA stadiums right beside each other. Like, Louth would have one, Meath would have one, Kildare have one, Dublin have 2, obviously. And like, do we really need all those stadiums? Are they ever full? Would it not be better to have a multi-use stadium? Could we not do a better, more joined up job of investing in sports so that kids have facilities? Rather than like 3 times a year there'll be a game that fills these stadiums. Maybe, if you're lucky.
It's funny because if you'd said was it Liberty Hall was 2017? Like, if you'd said in 2017 that we would be in women's football where we are now, we'd have been delighted. And yet there is, as you say, still a long way to go. I mean, the women's game needs so much more investment. I know we've had politicians in here talking about the investment needed in football in Ireland, but the women's game kind of gets lost in that conversation. But you'd hope this World Cup will reignite that conversation, get more funds.
Right, at 7:38, time for us to go to all of the glamour of the World Cup and soak in some Sydney Opera House goodness. Kathleen McNamee, good morning to you.
Morning, guys. How are we on?
Oh wow, the green screen's very impressive today.
Yeah, looks real.
Wow.
Yeah, I was going to say it's kind of bright, so I don't know if you can see it properly.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Sydney Opera House, just above me there.
Oh, nice.
You can kind of see it. And then right then over this way, you have Sydney Harbour. This isn't the side with the bridge. I had to go on this side because the other side was very windy and touristy. But yeah, you actually, while you were talking there, a couple of people walked by as well in Ireland jerseys. I was very tempted to run and grab them and be like, do you want to go on the radio in Ireland? So yeah, really nice atmosphere around here today, I have to say. Definitely feels like the World Cup is happening more here than it did in Brisbane. I was walking down here earlier and turned to my right and I was like, these people look very familiar. And it was none other than French captain Wendy Renard, top France goal scorer Eugène Le Sommer, and half of the French squad just wandering around doing touristy things. I did ask them, did they want to have a quick interview, but they very politely said no. So I made do with just the fact that it was very exciting seeing them wandering around. Also saw the North Korean coaching team wandering around, so it seems to be like there's quite a few teams wandering about Sydney today, soaking up the sights before the tournament starts on Thursday.
Is it cold?
no, it's flipping boiling. So we were told that like Sydney was going to be colder than Brisbane. I left Brisbane this morning at about 7:30 and it was pouring rain. It wasn't cold, it was like a mild summer day in Dublin. And I got to Sydney and it's like 25 degrees. I'm not wearing it now, but I have a big like woolen pennies coat and a jumper in my bag because I basically just dumped my stuff and came straight out to see what the vibe was around the city. So yeah, I don't know if you can tell either from my slightly sunburnt cheeks. I had to go buy some sun cream because the stuff I put on this morning clearly didn't do the job for the entire day.
Because it was supposed to be winter time down there and it was going to be like, we'll be totally fine in the conditions, but actually it's going to be balmy.
Yeah, put it this way, like if the weather is like this when we're playing, it's going to be like a hot summer's day in Dublin. Like I think it was like 25, 26 degrees today. Now it does apparently get a lot colder in the evenings, like it does turn colder quickly. So I'll see in a couple of hours what it feels like around 8 o'clock, which is what time Ireland will be playing here local time. But yeah, no, definitely there'll be no cold weather training necessary for how nice it is here right now.
And what's the schedule for the team today, do you know?
So today they just had a training session and then they fly to Sydney tomorrow. They actually have, I'm not entirely sure the logic of them not flying out until tomorrow morning because they have quite a hectic schedule. So they had a training session last night, which included some of those pictures that you guys were talking about. I think the ones that were taken at home were the ones of them wearing jerseys from the league, but the pictures that they took last night were of all their kind of home clubs and stuff. And it was really nice seeing them all running onto the pitch. They were so excited, like they almost kind of reverted back to their little kids when they were running out onto the pitch and they were all like messing and like jumping on each other's shoulders and stuff. It was like a really nice vibe. So they had that training session last night, another training session today, and a bit of recovery. And they fly tomorrow morning from Brisbane to Sydney, and that flight's about an hour and a half, just under an hour and a half. And then they go straight into match day -1 prep. So the press conference is tomorrow local time around 3:30, and that'll be Vera Pauw out a player. And that's kind of the first press conference that's going to be properly open to all the international media. So it's going to be really interesting to see what questions people are asking. And then they have another training session tomorrow evening at 5 o'clock local time. And then game day is pretty much all to themselves. So yesterday we talked to a couple of the players. We had Courtney Brosnan, Rusha Littlejohn, Heather Payne, and Amber Barrett, and it's kind of chatting to them all about what they'd be doing on Thursday to kind of keep themselves calm. And they all kind of said the same thing, that, you know, just treat it like any other normal day. Go for a coffee in the morning with the group. Some people like to read a book, other people like to go for a walk with someone else. So they'll have most of Thursday to themselves until the actual game prep kicks in.
Presumably, Kathleen, one of the first questions from the international media will be, what's the status of Denise O'Sullivan's fitness?
Yeah, presumably. I think that'll probably be the first one off the lips of the Irish media. I feel like the international media is going to want to talk to Vera more, just from chatting to a few people around Sydney, because it's the first time that a lot of them will have the opportunity to talk to her about the allegations that she is like completely denied from that Athletic article. So a lot of them seem more interested in that than Denise O'Sullivan. I think with Denise, it seems from the bit of the training session I saw last night, and like I was chatting to you guys about, you know, she looks in a good place. She looked like she was moving fairly nimbly, and the general consensus seems to be, even if she's not 100% fit, she is going to play. So hopefully she's all right, and that doesn't mean that she's, you know, not fit for Canada or Nigeria later on. But I feel like tomorrow's going to be an interesting press conference. I'm really intrigued to see what the tone of it all is going to be. It's
interesting to hear you talk about the players being giddy. It doesn't appear as if the stories and the athletic stuff around Vera Pauw has had an impact on the team, but obviously it's very difficult to tell from the limited amount of exposure you get to them. You are chatting to them though, like, you know, you do see the interaction, and you can tell if people are actually having a good time in each other's company. And look, this isn't particularly scientific, but how are those vibes coming across?
I think between the players, the vibes seem pretty good. I mean, it's kind of been one thing after another for this team. You know, you had, when we qualified, you had all the fallout from the song, you had the Vera allegations, And we had, the Colombia game on Friday, and that just threw such a spanner in the works again. And all of a sudden we were talking about something else other than, the World Cup and how important the game was. And you can see when you ask the players about those specific things, they're a bit exasperated by it, and they just want to focus on the football and the tournament. And when you talk to them about all the things around that, they're very happy to. I thought it was interesting. A couple of them said, from just chatting to them on Monday, that they had a day off on Sunday and how much they didn't realise they needed that. So it was up to the players what they wanted to do. Some players banded together, went to a zoo, saw koalas and kangaroos. Other players went up the Gold Coast and just, lay on a beach and sun themselves. A couple of people like Louise Quinn had the chance to see her sister who lives in Australia, who she hadn't seen in a year. Killian McCabe went to see some family as well who travelled over. So I thought it was interesting. A lot of players said that they thought that they were coping fine with the situation and the fact that it was so busy and that there was so much happening. They thought they were okay with it, and then once they actually had a little bit of time to themselves, they were like, oh no, we actually needed that going into the hecticness of the next week.
Does Vera seem relaxed herself, Kathleen, or how's her vibe been? I guess the Columbia game threw a spanner in the works as well for her.
I wouldn't say she's relaxed. I mean, she looked like she hadn't really slept when we talked to her on Saturday morning after the Columbia game. Whether that was just the general fallout that was on social media or if it was worry about whether Denise would be okay, it's hard to tell. I do think the last few weeks have really taken a toll on her personally. She's just not... She's very sharp normally, and I don't mean sharp as in rude or anything, but, very on the ball. And I wouldn't say she's off it at the moment, but there definitely is a lethargy there to a certain extent, and a little bit of tiredness with the way she appears and also the way she talks, which you can understand as well. I mean, a lot of the time we do these media events and say she'll talk to me and then she'll talk to RT, then she'll talk to Sky, and you're answering the same questions over and over and over again. So yeah, I think it seems to me that she's feeling it a little bit more than the squad is, which, if the squad are being sheltered from it as much as possible, that can only be a good thing considering how humongous the game is on Thursday and how ready Australia are. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw some of the back pages that some of the other journalists in Ireland were tweeting out from here in Australia, and, stuff like, we're rough and ready, or we're ready to take on Ireland's physicality, and they seem to be playing us very much as a physical team who, if you get past that, that's all we can offer. So yeah, there's a lot of fighting talk down here at the moment about this game, which has a few Irish heads a little bit worried.
Yeah, also maybe they're like totally underestimating our technical ability, which, wouldn't be the first time that a opponent has fallen into that trap and then find themselves going, oh, you can actually, I didn't know you could do that. So we can
hope. The only thing is they have actually played this team in the last year and a half, 2 years, so they do know what they're going up against, and I don't think mentally they seem to be in a very, very good place at the moment, and I wouldn't be surprised if they come out all guns blazing and really take us to town. But I could be corrected. I mean, I don't want that to be the case, but I just have a feeling that this team are on the up and that they could do something really big in this tournament if they play it right. And I think that opening game is key for them to get the jet fuel to go on a run in the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, they're obviously thinking about winning this, but there's been loads of hosts who think about winning it and then lose their first game or underperform and then kick into something more akin to their actual form. We have some Roisha Littlejohn chatting to you here. Let's play that now and have a look at this. Oh, who knows?
Game. How's Shaban? That's right. Yeah, look, we've been waiting for this moment for so long. We've wanted to be at a major tournament and it's finally here. I think for me, you're going, it's actually, how special is it that we are now opening up the World Cup? It's amazing, it's exciting, but at the same time I don't think we're not really thinking about it. We're still just going okay. I think that's a good way to be because we're relaxed. We don't want to be too nervous days before the tournament kicks off, so I think the squad's in a nice sort of place. Maybe people might feel different, but I think for me it's going to be when we're on the bus going to the stadium for the game, I'll be like, okay, here we are, right? And obviously it's going to be a packed out stadium, but it's going to be special, and it's something to remember for the rest of our lives, I guess.
That's Risha Littlejohn there. We obviously have been talking to her sister about her having those conversations about what it's actually going to be like on the day when the anthems are playing and the stadium is full, and that was before it had been moved to the 80,000 stadium. What are her chances of starting this game, do you think?
Strong. I would be very, very surprised if she didn't start this game. I don't think, if Denise is fit, then I don't think the squad is going to change at all from what we saw the starting squad against France being.
So that's the American base. That's the front three. Yeah. Would you personally make any changes?
Just as I said that, 4 players from the French squad just walked by me and they turned and looked and I said it. And I was like, I swear, I am talking about you, but not just because you just walked by me.
Bring him over there, yeah.
I don't know if my French is good enough to call them back.
Would you? So that's the team you expect to play. Is that the team you'd pick?
I think with the players that she has brought, probably, yeah. My only question mark would maybe be over Rusha or Lily Agg, but I also wouldn't be massively aggrieved if it was one or the other. I thought it was interesting watching Lily Agg at the open training session that there was, not the one this week, the one last week. She was properly going for it and clearly trying to show Vera, a couple of us commented on it watching it, clearly trying to show Vera that she does deserve a spot in that starting team. I think that squad is so settled now and has been for so long, and I think it'd be very, very hard to bring someone into it without unsettling things massively. And I don't know, is there the depth there to do it either? A lot of the players that are starting are kind of, you look at someone like Sinead Farrelly. I don't think she has the legs to go a full 90 minutes would be my concern with someone like her. So having those options off the bench is quite important. If you listen to last night's episode of Koi Gig, Karen and Emma were talking about the fact that they hate Megan Connolly playing in that back 5. So if she was to move into midfield, then would you bring in someone like Diane Caldwell? And that's something that a lot of people have posited as well as an option, but I do feel like what's there at the moment is probably the best setup that we can have going into the game, assuming that Denise is fit.
Kathleen, when you say that Sydney has more of a World Cup vibe than Brisbane did, do you mean billboards, sides of buses, just general atmosphere? Is there more fans, or what's the difference, I guess?
Yeah, it's just a lot more obvious. I think the cities are also very different vibes. Brisbane is definitely a lot more chill and almost feels like a big, not a big town is a wrong word because it's obviously a big city, but Sydney has a proper city feel to it. And, nearly everywhere you go in the central areas, there's loads and loads of posters that the World Cup is happening. They have it on the side of their kind of version of the Lewis, the tram that goes through the city that has big pictures of various members of the Matildas on it. In the airport, it was really obvious when you flew in that it was a host city. And then just generally, since I've been walking about, I got in around 11:30 today. I kind of got in town, just kind of went for a wander, and automatically, and maybe it's just the Irish in me as well, you're noticing Irish people. There was a group of girls wearing Galway jerseys sitting eating ice cream down by the pier when I was waiting to come on to you guys. A couple of Irish people walked by in Irish jerseys. So you just get a bit more of a sense that the tournament is happening, whereas in Brisbane you were talking to a lot of people, whether it's staff in restaurants or shops or even in taxi drivers. None of them actually knew what was going on. You'd be getting an Uber out to Beacon Park, which is a good half an hour outside the city to drive, and the taxi driver would be like, so where are you going? And you'd explain, and they're like, that's happening here, is it? It still feels like in Brisbane there wasn't that much of an acknowledgement, and maybe that would change the last couple of days. A few more teams have flown into town. I think Ireland were the only ones there for the last week. But yeah, no, Sydney has a good vibe about it. Hopefully it continues over the next couple of days.
And in terms of you were talking about the back pages, obviously there is an Ashes series in the balance. the international rugby team, which I know is not particularly popular even when they're doing really well, got beaten at the weekend, which is a good opportunity for them to kick the team, so that probably ratchets up the amount of coverage they get. What kind of level of coverage is the World Cup getting?
It's getting quite a lot. Like, in fairness, the stuff that I'm seeing, it's all about Australia and then little bits about the Ireland, just because we are that opening game. But if you're flicking through like the news channels, which I have done many a morning the last week because of jet lag, you know, there's at least a segment on it on every news store or any news bulletin, which is kind of good, whether it's updates from training or different events they had that game against Australia or against France, and just before that they managed to get like their jerseys, which were handed out to them by little girls called Matilda from all over the country, which I thought was quite impressive that they managed to gather 23 of those together. And then for the newspapers, especially, I think since the weekend papers probably wasn't so much about it last week, but definitely in the last couple of days, every back page is interviews with various players in the team. If you go on social media as well, like all the branding, all the big brands in Australia, all covered in the Matildas. Even just walking around the shopping district earlier, you know, there's big life-size posters of Sam Kerr or Ellie Carpenter. There's a massive like Adidas football in one of the squares, and you can like get your picture taken beside the football and like a hologram sort of thing of one of the players. So it definitely feels like the hype is building, and that a lot of effort has gone into, you know, making it really visible here, which is class to see. And I'm looking forward to seeing what it's going to be like over the next couple of days. You know, I've already sourced an Irish bar that's doing a screening of the match. That's only about 5 minutes from my hotel, so I intend on going over there and seeing where the true Irish crew are based in Sydney.
Kathleen, good stuff. Thanks a million. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
See you.
So Kathleen McNamee on the steps of the Sydney Opera House this morning.
It's approaching 5 p.m. in Sydney, and I'd say Kathleen now is about to go for a bite, perhaps, for dinner. There's a restaurant there from memory. It was about 10 years ago, halfway down the harbour there.
Yeah.
And it's lovely, like on the water, beautiful setting, nice food, but it's a battle with the seagulls.
Oh.
They are fearless in Sydney. Like, I don't know, they had a conflab or what. They're like, there's nothing to fear with these humans, lads, just go for it. And they'll take your stuff, Ger. They will take it.
My least favourite thing about Dublin is seagulls and pigeons.
I think the seagulls here are quite tame in comparison, and the pigeons are fine.
Right. So the Australian ones are
an edge to them.
another level.
Bit of an edge.
That'll put me off now.
Have you been to Howth?
Have I been to Holt?
Yeah.
I have, yeah. Yeah.
Sydney and Howth.
Seagulls there, not so good. But good of you to give Kathleen the recommendation for the dinner spot after she's gone.
No, because I wouldn't recommend
She's
it.
just commented in.
Okay.
Yeah.
She's obviously still listening. She's just commented the seagulls here are wild in capital letters. So I think that backs up your point, Colin.
If anybody wants to get in touch, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. You can leave a comment on youtube.com/off the ball, or you can get us at Off the Ball AM. This is the Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball here, and it's 7:57 this morning. A couple of other things we need to talk about. One.
Yeah, I was just very interested to see the viewing figures around the men's Wimbledon final.
Yeah.
So on its peak there on Sunday between Novak Djokovic and Carlos Alcaraz, 11.2 million people tuned in to watch the showdown on BBC One. So that's higher than any final since 2016 when Andy Murray beat Milos Raonic, and that was in straight sets. It was a comfortable victory, but that was for King Murray. But what's really interesting is that it's not too far off the coronation figures for Prince Charles.
Well,
12 million for that.
is that why they kept banging on about the royal family and how enjoyable it must be for those kids? And it was non-bloody stop. Claire Balding, shut up about it. Shut up about it. Who cares? And the Telegraph this morning has the, I don't know what her name is, Kate Middleton on the front cover saying, oh, Kate has made Wimbledon Hollywood, people would have, like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, understandable. There is a royal box for a reason, I guess.
But they're a lost country.
Well, look,
People have wanted to go to Wimbledon not because of the royal family, because it's Wimbledon. It's one of the greatest sports events every year, and we happen to be living through the greatest time as tennis fans ever.
there is an element of people.
That's why people want to go there. They don't want to go because the royal family are there.
No, but I'd say there's an element of people who are big fans of the crown, who like the regal nature of Wimbledon, the poshness of it, who want to live out their dreams.
The
of
Hollywood folks.
Possibly.
I don't know.
Possibly them, but also the regular folk who throw on their finest and speak in their finest.
They have dogs trained to keep the seagulls away now in the Opera House restaurant.
Well, good for them.
According to Michael Mulcahy. Is that true, Michael?
Can we get dogs in Howth to keep them away?
That's amazing.
Traumatised one time.
And also, you'd be delighted to know, Ger, I know you've been waiting to hear about this, Novak Djokovic was fined £6,100 for his racket smash in the 5th set.
And sorry, explain to me how there's a violation for time, but there's also a separate violation, so you can basically be a bit of an asshole in 2 separate ways.
You get warnings. I think what they legislate for is that it's a very emotional game, tennis, and you're on your own. And in a football scenario,
you're less on your own now.
You have your teammates to give out to.
Well, you know your coach,
out your teammates,
and your coach can coach you now.
But
from the box,
tennis court, you're on your own.
Why is it more emotional than another individual sport?
No, I'm saying all individual sports are very emotional, but tennis is so fast paced. I mean, you're making constant decisions regularly. Say in a game of golf, you're in contact with the ball about 4 seconds.
And you get your caddy.
Bit of time, bit of caddy, bit of chat. In tennis, it's rapid. Rapid. And there's a clock on it. So you can't slow down.
Do you get stressed when you're playing tennis?
25 seconds.
I enjoy it, but when you hit the net or hit it long, it's the worst sport. And actually, someone commented yesterday.
Are you playing in a league? Are you serious about your tennis?
No, not at all. It's very social. Someone in the comments said yesterday that it's a terrible sport to play if you can't play, and people get Wimbledon fever and they go onto the court and they think they're not replicate what they see, but do similar things to what they're seeing, and it's just so difficult to do that. So that's a difficult element of it.
That was one of the few fair observations in our YouTube comments yesterday.
Can we briefly discuss Harry Maguire?
Oh yeah.
I saw the statement at the weekend, and I hadn't heard rumblings of him losing the captaincy, but I guess it makes absolute sense given he's not in Eric Ten Hag's plans and he hasn't been a starting 11 member for quite some time. His statement was very not backhanded. It was nice. To be fair, he probably didn't even have to put up a statement, did he? After discussions with the manager today, he's informed me he is changing captain. He outlined his reasons to me, and whilst I'm personally extremely disappointed, I will continue to give my all every time I wear the shirt. I don't think he's going to be wearing the shirt for much longer.
No.
You gotta go.
West Ham seems to be the club with the most interest.
Does he have to go? Right, because my favourite line from all of the media I've consumed in the last 24 hours was, when Manchester United qualified for the Champions League, Harry Maguire got a pay increase. Boom. That's how you write contracts, ladies and gentlemen.
I think
that's the type of thing that's what your agent should be doing for you.
I think his brand is that he wants to play.
For the Champions League, I get more money.
I think that's his brand.
His brand is a 30-year-old absolute gazillionaire.
I don't think he's any Winston Bogard.
There's Champions League Wednesday, Tuesday, Saturday, Sunday. And then there'll be all those League Cup games, and they'll want to go deep in the League Cup because a trophy's a trophy, as we've seen. Pep Guardiola has decided that it's important to win those trophies. He'll get at least 8 or 9 games in that, and being the 5th choice Manchester United defender, centre back,
appeals to him
at 250 grand.
I don't think he likes that.
He wants to play for England.
I know he put it out there that he's not happy with the captaincy being stripped. He said he's very disappointed. He put a social post out there. I think West Ham are after him. He'll go, lads. I'd be absolutely shocked if he didn't go. Also, it was very interesting, a trip down memory lane. Luke Connolly, in that Examiner interview I talked about earlier, talked about being taken out of school for the 2002 World Cup, and he just remind yourself that this week is the first time that we're in a senior World Cup for 21 years. It's ridiculous.
I forgot that it's summer
holidays. That's memories that I will like. That's memories I'll never forget. All those 3 games, I know exactly where I was, and this generation of kids never going to know where they were starting Thursday.
They won't have the experience of the TV being rolled out into the classroom because it's summer halls,
and everybody has screens in all the classrooms now.
Yeah, see, I haven't been in the classroom in a long time. It's all changed.
Big match for Shamrock Rovers tonight. Very difficult situation they find themselves in. I think it's Dan McDonald's piece in the Indo today outlining just how steep a climb it is from here to get to the group stages of the Conference League if they were to make it, but it looks like they're going to really struggle if they can't overturn a 1-0 deficit in Iceland tonight.
3 rounds of Conference League games to win if they can't.
No Irish team has ever done that.
No, and it's €3 million at the other end of this carrot, which will be nice. But the injuries that you mentioned as well, like Jack Byrne joining that list, missing tonight. Neil Farrugia will miss tonight. They have a massive upset like that, and it's an artificial surface as well, which I don't think the Rovers players generally be happy with. Stephen Bradley was weirdly positive after the game last week, considering how crap they were.
It probably has to be because they were so insipid in the first half.
Maybe, yeah.
Down on them, they'd be even more down in the second leg.
Yeah, they've been up and down this season. There have been times when they've managed to put in performances, so it's not beyond the bounds of possibility that you overturn a 1-0 deficit, and obviously away goals don't count, blah blah blah. So
I'll tell you what's a disgrace. 8:15 kickoff.
It's not great, is it?
No.
Where are you going to find time for the WAM documentary? 5 minutes past 8 this morning here on OTB AM. During the ads, a clip from the latest Coigig pod where Kathleen, Karen and Emma talked about the Australian threat this coming Thursday. They're a little bit concerned about it, it's fair to say. The Coigig pod on Off the Ball is in association with Cadbury, official snack partner to the Republic of Ireland women's national team. We're back after these with Tommy Rooney's final power rankings before the All-Ireland final.
OTB AM. It's Galway versus Kilkenny.
But not as you know it.
It's the fastest I've ever seen you run in your life, bro.
The Hurling Pod Live is off to the Bord Gáis Energy Theatre in Dublin this July, and you're invited.
I'll be joined by my co-host James Skell and Paul Murphy on the night.
Start the leveler, he'd say, and the tractor is coming after us.
As we debate the highs and lows of the 2023 season and preview the All-Ireland hurling final. Plus, we'll be announcing some more hurling legends to take the stage with us.
It was a ruck, I got confused.
It's happening on July 20th at the Bord Gáis Energy Theatre. It's an exclusive off-air event. Tickets are limited, so don't delay. Go to offtheball.com/events for more.
Bord Gáis Energy, proud sponsors of the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship.
This is what inter-county hurling is it? That's why I should have stayed at rugby.
Yeah, I think, that was the whole thing all week where, like, a lot of the international media were asking the team how they're feeling about Sam Kerr and stuff, but there's so many other players on that team that are, much more impressed. Well, not much more impressive, but, like, as impressive and as good. Or Elsa Mary Fowler, who's, like, building up to being one of the great players if she can find somewhere that
AM. The Sports Breakfast
Well, that's
Show.
the thing. And yes, Sam Kerr is class. She's a brilliant player. She's one of the best. But she's brilliant in the air. That's what she is kind of known for. So we don't mind that. We're really good in the air. It's one of our best things. With great defenders, great goalkeeper. So that for me, I'm not actually too bothered about Sam Kerr. Actually, I'm bothered about the other players, about the
pace is
the right, super rapid. Like they're very good at picking up second balls as well, and that's something we're not great at. When we do defend the initial ball. So yeah, there's a good few things that we need to be worried about. I'm not looking forward to it, to be honest.
I know, I'm trying to do a little bit of research in advance of it, and I'm clutching at straws, being like, Australia have been poor in all of their opening matches, and especially against European teams. I'm like, it's fine. We have no record in the World Cup to compare it to, so we have a clean slate.
OTB AM.
The Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball.
Some of these critics, these pundits.
Generally speaking, I'd be a fan of Off the Ball. Exactly. And Tommy knows his football, obviously. I listen to football pod the odd time.
And I was looking at the power rankings and I thought that Jesus Owen must still be feeling the effects of these mushrooms.
They just dismiss you like, you have nothing to do with the bloody occasion.
Shifty Lad says on YouTube, 413 watching but only one like. Poor ratio. Come on, get your fingers out. Or are you all just holding your likes in reserve until you see how Tommy's power rankings are doing for you today? Is that what's happening? Tommy, good morning to you.
Good morning, Ger.
You're going to bring the likes or the hates? I don't know.
Well, I think it's quite telling that Shane hasn't said hello to me yet this morning.
Oh, okay.
Hello, Tommy.
Shane, hard luck, fella.
Yeah, it's been. I know Mick McCarthy last week spoke about the hurt and the anger that you feel when your cardi exits. I feel like a sort of form of depression. I don't know if the name has been put on it yet, but a form of depression when your cardi exits.
There must be a German word for it.
It has to be. Yeah.
Surely some German speaker in the comments can come up with something for us.
Yeah.
What's the opposite of Schadenfreude?
It's a dark place. Yesterday was tough. Today has been tough as well. But I think by Wednesday, Thursday, maybe you get over it. And I
don't know if this will make you feel better, but I put it to Paddy Anders in the football pod last night that Monaghan performance on Saturday evening would have beaten Dublin, the Dublin side of 2021, and he reckons it would have.
Doesn't make me feel any better. We're still out. We're out of the championship. But look, it was a good run. I'm not going to get too down a
Jesus, Shane, what a year, Shane.
Yeah, it's been brilliant.
What an unbelievable year, like. Nobody gave you hope.
Yeah, it's true.
Nobody gave you hope of staying up in Division 1. Nobody wanted a job. Nobody wanted a job. Well, there were some people close to getting the job and they pulled out, and then or they weren't given it, and then who was left? You were nearly going back to Banty again. And Vinnie Corey steps up to the plate. You had an ageing squad, young players that probably hadn't been blooded through yet, it was an unbelievable year from Monaghan, and that is not patronising or condescending in any way. And the performance on Saturday, like, they went for it. Like, you couldn't be more proud of your county.
Oh, for sure. And like, obviously, like Mayo lost by 12 points to Dublin in the previous round. So obviously Monaghan will naturally.
Cool your jets. Let's do the preliminaries. A little bit of foreplay, please. Come on.
Well, there's only one mover this week, and it's Mighty Mead.
So what page are we on? We're skipping page 4. How does this work now?
Moved.
I've been away for a while. You haven't screwed up the format on me, have you?
Page 4 hasn't moved in the last 3 or 4 weeks.
London 33, Waterford 32, Tip 31, New York 30. New York not even moving. No. All right. Leitrim 29, Wicklow 28, Wexford 27, Carlow 26, Longford 25. This is the positions that they will all be in come the start of the league, unless one of them hires, like, I don't know, Jim McGuinness comes in for Fermanagh or Limerick. Fermanagh, Limerick, Laois 22, Offaly 21, Sligo 20, Antrim 19, Cavan 18, Down 17.
You mentioned Jim McGuinness, Down 17th. Who's in 16th, lads?
Meath, +1. The top 16 counties. Now, Meath.
Mighty Meath.
Meath behind Louth. That's not supposed to be Laois in 14, by the way. That's a typo. Don't know who that's supposed to be, but it ain't Laois.
It's supposed to be Louth, yeah.
So it's
supposed to be Meath behind Louth. Yeah, just because we get to build our stadium and Louth don't, doesn't mean that we get to jump them in the power rankings. Louth have had a better.
That's the most niche.
Better season.
That's the most niche negging that's ever happened on the show.
Loud. Poor Loud.
Oh, you got a little bit of stadium envy, have you, Loud?
Loud deserved their stadium now. I don't know what the GAA are at. I think they're afraid of getting burned again with Cork and Mayo, obviously. So hopefully Loud get that sorted, because the good people Loud deserve a stadium.
Patronised by me twice in 10 seconds there, Tommy. That's amazing behaviour. Well done. Come here.
I would say, like, it was an awful long time for a Meath man to stand up there and lift the trophy and be able to celebrate it, you know, without any real complaints. You're talking over 20 years. 1999 is probably the last time Meath lifted a trophy in Croke Park. And I don't even think anyone, will I be right in saying in 1999 Graham Geraghty couldn't even walk up the steps to the Hogan stand? The presentation was on the pitch.
You're obviously not counting
the I am counting.
Joe Sheridan again, negging Louth just for the sake of it.
I am, of course, counting it, but I mean, you know, it was a funny time back in 2010. So, like, as a Meath fan, all you could hope for is that you could get what Monaghan have had over the last decade, and that's all I'd say. That over the next decade, Meath get a period as successful as Monaghan had over the last little while, with provincial success and being competitive in Division 1 and getting as far as they have done in an All-Ireland semi-final. So been a long time coming for Meath, and I would argue that Down probably put in their worst performance of the year to date at the weekend. Sean Brennan made an unbelievable save at a really key moment before half time. Meath got a really fortuitous goal, but Ronan Jones was in the right place at the right time when the ball came back off the post. We've often complimented the Dubs for being there to flick in, dropping balls as they came in short. And in the second half, Meath just grew in confidence. And I'll tell you one thing, a Meath team with confidence is a dangerous thing, as long as it's not an inflated sense of confidence that is untrue. So hopefully it's a really, really positive couple of months in Meath. They have a fantastic team holiday and they continue to build and grow. But I'm leaving them in a 16th chair. It was a secondary competition. When you watched the Derry-Kerry game in particular the next day, to me it felt like different sports, different grades. So there's a long way to go for Meath to grow, and hopefully it'll come from this. And I think Down will get a bounce out of it as well. I think both of them will get a big bounce out of it in 2024.
We were having a little bit of this conversation with Moisey yesterday, but it does seem a little bit ridiculous that a team from Division 2 can be in the secondary competition, because they've just won it. Like, it's supposed to be a competition for teams who aren't going to be competitive in the top tier, and yet here, because of the convoluted, nonsensical nature of the provincial championships, the finalists automatically being in the Sam Maguire competition, we actually had an imbalance. And I think, listening to one of the Sligo players, it was Morris Brosnan's piece, I've forgotten which of the Sligo players was saying, like, the manager literally told us before we played the Dublin game that we didn't have a chance of winning, and that it was just difficult for us to compute, but it was true. So there shouldn't be a competition where Sligo are playing a game where they don't have a chance of winning, because that's actually not helping them. Now, this is not Meath's fault, but in a way, right? I was asking did Meath end up having a better year than Louth or Kildare?
Meath lost to Offaly in the Championship, and then to win the Tailteann Cup, they bet Tipperary, they bet Waterford, who were very low in the power rankings. They bet Down in a game where Down kicked 17 wides, and Meath were lucky to get over the line again that day. Their quarter-final win was against Wexford. They kicked 223 on a sunny day in Navan. They beat them, they hockeyed them. Then they got by Antrim in Croke Park, but they were 9 points up at Antrim with 10 minutes to go. They won that game by 2. And then there's a shootout with Down. I would argue that Meath were the third best team in the Tailteann Cup on paper going into this. In terms of confidence, Meath were far lower down. I did not expect Meath to turn this around in the manner which they did. However, the thing about the Tailteann Cup though, Ger, there's 2 grades in the Tailteann Cup. There's an intermediate grade and a junior grade. And regardless, I think, of even if you didn't have that quirk with the Division 2 teams, and I don't agree that it should be like that, I think there still would be a gulf in the Tailteann Cup. And the same with the All-Ireland. Like, Sligo put in 2 good performances before that Dublin game. Like, that format is closer to something working than we've ever had.
I agree. I still think I was the one making the case that was the greatest day of Gaelic football that we've seen in 2 decades, and I would stand over that. I still think though that, like, if Sligo had won the Tailteann Cup this year, they would feel better about themselves at the end of the season than they do at the end of the season having been hockeyed by Dublin in their last game.
Yeah, well, they'd have that team holiday, and that is so important. I'm serious.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And I actually think if there was, to your point about there being a third tier, maybe there should be a third tier where after the group stages, the bottom teams also get the extra month of football, and then the winners of that end up getting a team holiday as well. Like, maybe it just comes from the bottom 16, and the bottom 8, they go into a playoff, and then somebody ends up again with the end of the year and the game in Croke Park, and that could be a double header in the August bank holiday weekend. There was a fairly obvious bank holiday Monday, finish the season, opportunity open to them that they haven't taken. Maybe they'll take it next year, and look, this is the first year of it.
You're right. Look, and I'd be very reluctant at the moment until we kind of figure this all out to create any new GAA competitions, especially when the Sigerson Cup is under pressure, the Railway Cup has disappeared. So I wouldn't be going creating a third, fourth playoff, as one of our esteemed colleagues suggested on Twitter, Adrian Barry, while I was on holidays during the week. But perhaps a shield for the Tailteann Cup. Yeah. Like, without, maybe we don't need a junior grade, but maybe after the quarter-final stage, if you're out, you go into a shield and there's a 2 knockout games, and like, lads aren't going to be going to America, I don't think, at that stage anyway. I think they have to, well, I suppose they probably would, but play it off quickly, get it done quickly.
Are you not just is that not just throwing trophies around everywhere? Or like,
well, I don't know it's about throwing trophies, Shane. Like, I think it's like, I do think what we have at the minute is getting to where we need to get to, and I think Derry are going to treat Ulster very differently next year. I think we'll see that next year. They're going to treat the provincial championships differently, because Derry are going to feel like they can win the All-Ireland. And they're going to have to sit down and say, well, can we attack the league the way we did this year in Division 2? They don't need to. Do we attack Ulster the way we have done? We've won 2 in a row. So they're going to probably approach it the way Dublin and Kerry did this year, in the sense that they probably timed their run to be flying when it got to the quarter-final stage. Derry have been flying for weeks and probably ran out of gas late on. I just think that the Tailteann Cup teams there is a massive gulf. Give them something to play for, make it over a week, maybe 2 games, maybe you get a bounce, maybe you get a bit more cohesiveness together. We don't want to see teams being hockeyed. In fairness though, at the same time, Ger, like, I'm probably talking myself out of it, Shane probably to the point, some teams just have bad years and they just want the end as well.
Fair enough. I get that, and for whatever reason that is going to be the case, but it should happen less and less as players demand better standards, as management teams improve, as the money flows, as we know, because the money talks. Let's keep going. Come on, what else have we got?
So Meath 16th, Clare have remained in 15th, Louder in 14th, Westmeath 13th, Kildare 12th, Donegal 11th, Roscommon 10th, Cork 9th. A lot of these teams will feel like it's been harsh on them being back that far. Tyrone are 8th, Galway are 7th, who lost in the preliminary round, Armagh are 6th, Monaghan have remained in 5th, Mayo have remained in 4th, the league champions, Derry have remained in 3rd, Dublin will remain in 2nd, Kerry will remain in 1st. Before Shane loses his shit, I do think that Kerry, Dublin and Derry are on their own in this tier. I think Kerry, Dublin and Derry looked like and felt like they could win the All-Ireland at the weekend. Monaghan were unbelievable, but Monaghan got one shot off in the last 18 minutes of play.
Can I just ask a question? In the power rankings, the order of the power rankings suggests that if you're ahead of one team, you're going to beat them. Correct?
No.
Yes.
Not necessarily.
Yes.
Not always. No, teams can beat others. Teams can come from behind to beat others. Like, we had this argument a couple of weeks ago. In the power rankings in 2020, where would Tipperary and Cavan have been when they got to the All-Ireland semi-finals? They wouldn't have been in third and fourth.
For that week?
They weren't.
For that one glorious week. It's like that scene in Shawshank. It's like the scene in Shawshank where they're drinking a few beers on the roof. Everything feels possible. I mean, obviously, in the power rankings, the guards are still battering the shit out of them. You're still, like, you know, scared of what's going to happen in the jacks, in the showers. But no, for this one moment, Cavan were third and Tipperary were fourth.
It was also a different year. They went straight from the provinces to the semi-finals. Yeah. So, like...
Yeah, I know, and there's not an equivalence there, of course. And I'm not saying that Monaghan are anywhere as far as away being where Tipperary and Cavan were in 2020, but I'm just making that point. Like, the power rankings aren't meant to be a predictions model. They aren't meant to be something for the bookies to lean on when they're making their shouts before the game and they're setting their prices. The power rankings, they aren't meant to be handouts or like the old FAI grants were back in the day where you could just apply and get whatever you wanted. Like, this isn't what the power rankings is about. The power rankings is meant to represent the teams that are closest to winning the All-Ireland. And I just don't think Monaghan were going to win the All-Ireland.
They're a piss take. Like, if Monaghan had got over the line, like, it was 2 points in it on 68 minutes. If they'd got over the line, and granted Dublin's strength came through and they pushed those kickouts in those last 5 minutes of injury time, whatever else, but like, if that game had gone the other way, and it could easily have gone the other way, like, Monaghan would be All-Ireland contenders because they'd be in a final against Derry or Kerry, as it turned out. Like, how could they not have been All-Ireland contenders? Like, they were much closer to Dublin than Mayo were the previous week. They beat Mayo in the last round of the league, Monaghan as well, in Castlebar. So, like, what do they have to... Yeah, I know, the game meant nothing. I know the game meant nothing.
Hold on a second.
They still beat a strong Mayo team.
Whatever way you want, Shane. You can paint it whatever you want. Like, the realistic situation here is Galway and Mayo screwed up in the last round of the round.
They did, yeah, they screwed up.
Galway and Mayo screwed up. You telling me that a Galway side or a Mayo side who had came through the round robin stages top of their group wouldn't be different? Wouldn't have been a different quarter final? Kerry were screwed if that happened.
The Granny had wheels.
Kerry weren't screwed. Kerry screwed up.
No, sorry. If Kerry were screwed if they finished second or third.
No, they weren't. Turns out Kerry are really good. Kerry screwed up by periodising wrong for the first round of the round robin and were unprepared for what Mayo were going to throw at them. But it turns out Mayo are all fur coat and no knickers. That's what this was. This was a stereotypical souffle of Mayo, where as soon as something punctured them, they're like, wah, and all the air came out of them. This was like an all-time great Mayo swoon this year, and they deserve no credit for winning a league where there was a week between the end of the league and the league final, and then the next week they had to play a championship match, and they couldn't get up for the championship match against Roscommon. I'm sorry, but like, all of Mayo's worst failings re-emerged this year, including us falling for them and being romantically attached to them, and stupidly going, oh, we still love you, Mayo, you're amazing, look at you, you're great, we love your colour and we love your fans, and it's so, oh, you've got the best songs and at least your fans sing properly. No, we need to punish ourselves for this, Tommy. I'd be taking Mayo off the whole front page. I think Monaghan would beat Mayo if they played tomorrow. I think Monaghan would beat Mayo 8 times out of 10 if they played at the moment with the current teams.
I think if Kildare had beaten Monaghan that day in Tullamore, which, by the way, they very well could have done and probably should have done.
Don't dare say Kildare before.
No, hold on. If Kildare beat Monaghan that day, which they easily could have done, and then they'd gone on to beat Armagh on penalties the exact same way Monaghan did, and then push the Dubs the way Monaghan did last weekend, I would also be making the argument that Kildare should be in the top 4 of the power rankings.
And there wouldn't be a hope in hell that Kildare would be near the top 4 in the power rankings. There wouldn't be a hope in hell.
What more can a team do than what they do?
I think you're damaging your own argument here, Shane.
No, but you know, if a team,
Shane, there wouldn't be Shane if Kildare had if Kevin Feely's last minute free sent Kildare through against Monaghan and they squeaked over the line against Armagh on penalties, and they went down fighting like they did against the Dubs twice this year when they lost by a point in the league and a point in Leinster, there isn't a hope in hell Kildare would be fourth in the power rankings.
Right, forget that argument. I'm not arguing for Kildare.
No.
I'm not gonna die on that sword. I'm dying on the Monaghan sword here.
He's right about Monaghan.
Shit. If I could avoid having Mayo fourth, I would.
Can you get 2005 out of your head, Tommy, when Paul Finlay scored that goal and Mark Ward palmed it into his own net? Like, are you not over it by now? It's 18 years ago. Like you said, you admitted yourself you have Monaghan lower in the rankings because of the pain you felt and the slagging you got in Colostorial those days. And I'm sure it was tough.
Skull Rush and Carrick McGross.
Sorry, Skull Rush.
I was in primary school. I didn't admit that. It was tough. I didn't admit that. But the power rankings have never been coloured by anything like that. I'm trying to be fair here. That's just how I see it.
I think you are overrating Mayo. I'd say you're correct in that there's a second tier. Like, but how are Mayo ahead of Galway?
If Galway were in fourth and Monaghan were in fifth, my argument will be less strong, I think.
Galway are the fourth best team in the country. I can't manipulate the power rankings any more than I have them.
Galway are the fourth best team in the country.
They are, like. They just messed up against Armagh.
So, but you've got them at seventh.
But Mayo
bet them. Mayo bet them. There is a course that happens here. Mayo won the league.
Okay.
Do you know? Like Mayo next year are going to be closer to the All-Ireland than Monaghan will be.
Okay. So we should move on. You've got Kerry 1 and Dublin 2. Kerry are going to win the All-Ireland, according to the power rankings.
According to the power rankings, Kerry have done very little wrong all year long. According to the power rankings, Kerry have nearly always retained first place. There was a 2-week sojourn where Galway overtook them. So, if you want to make your call off the back of the power rankings, do that. I know where I'd be leaning at the moment, and I think Dublin are primed to win the All-Ireland.
They make them number one in your power rankings.
But they're not. Like, they're not number one in the power rankings. I just think that at the minute, I'm going to change over the next couple of weeks. I'm not putting them number one in the power rankings. But I'm allowed to say a plucky underdog can win. Like I had Meath 17th, and I thought that the plucky underdogs of Meath might be down in the back of my heart. I just think that Dublin have, as you called it months ago, our timing is run perfectly. The only problem is, and I made a very clunky analogy like this on the show last night. I heard you say on Monday that it was like the last dance.
Yeah.
The only problem is Michael Jordan's playing with the opposition.
I mean, you know, which era Jordan is it? Look, it's true. Oh, However, they always come up against good teams. You know,
but like your man is the greatest player we've ever seen.
I think it's undeniable now. The bit in the second half where a ball got kicked in, and it was a kind of aimless, lazy, tired ball in, and he just turned around and started screaming at them all. You were like, that's going to be interesting. The next few balls they found him properly.
I kind of worried with that one. That reminded me of Con in 2021 against Mayo, and it was the first time I really see the Dubs start balling each other out of it on the pitch that day, and it looked like things were falling apart. And for what it's worth, Dublin bet Monaghan in 15 seconds. It was after Began's kick out when Fenton put them ahead. Dublin bet Monaghan in the next 15 seconds. Dublin switched it on. They ate Monaghan alive. Paddy Small showed Ryan Wiley the sideline. He turned them back. Wiley got swallowed up by Gannon, Small and Costello. He threw it back to O'Hanlon. O'Hanlon gets tracked by 3. He throws it back to Began. Mannion and Con close down Began. Costello and Small are coming the other end. Began throws it to O'Hanlon and touches on the ground. Mannion nails that free. They go 2 points up. They turn over Began's next kick out. They go 3 points up. They only turned over Rory Began 3 times in that game, and twice was in that 2 minute period. So Dublin put the squeeze on and they won that game. Monaghan got one more shot off, and that was Jack McCarnes in the 66th minute. Derry had the chances to win this game. Derry had the opportunities. Like I don't think Monaghan left anything else out there. Like Monaghan didn't miss much. McInnesby's chance, maybe he could have squared it, but McFitz did unbelievably well. Derry butchered chance after chance in that game, but when Kerry switched it on like Dublin did, between the 65-40 on the clock when Clifford scored, or O'Shea converted that free that O'Brien got, that phantom free that Joe McQuillan gave. 3 minutes later, Kerry scored their 4 points in a row to go 2 points up. like we just saw two unbelievable teams switch it on when it mattered most. It's going to be an unbelievable All-Ireland final.
Can I take you back to the first half though, where Beggan does hit a post, and to your point earlier about Ronan Jones being in the right place, nobody follows that in. There's also a couple of goal chances that didn't look like goal chances but suddenly became goal chances because there was an angled run through that pocket of space on the right hand side of Dublin's defence from the left wing, and it feels like that Kerry half back line will be able to do what they did for the goal, that they'll be able to run at pace. And I don't know why Kerry didn't do a bit more of that against Derry, but maybe that was just because Derry were too busy celebrating the goal. I do think that in that first half Dublin were very, very passive, and in the first half last year against Kerry they should have been out of sight, but for Evan Comerford's heroics and gamesmanship that penalty would have been scored and that would have been game over. Like, there would have been no coming back from, would it have been 9-point lead for Kerry at that stage?
7. It should have been 7 at half time, yeah.
They went in 7 at half time, did they?
No, it could have been 7 points at half time.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think that the ebb and flow of the game was such that they were so dominant. So I can definitely see a pathway for Kerry to come out and put together their full, complete performance for 70 minutes. Notwithstanding that, I still think the Dublin are going to win because they're a better team than they were last year by a significant amount more than Kerry are a better team.
I do think Kerry have improved. It's hard to measure how much winning on an All-Ireland gives you. Like, I watched back the 2019 match last night, the replay, and Dublin looked like a team that were about to win 5 in a row. Kerry looked like a bunch of kids and David Moran in the middle of the field. Like, that's how it looked. Kerry dropped in, I think, 5 long balls short. They hit in 5 long balls in the first 10 minutes of the match, while Mannion, Conn and Kilkenny each scored a pair of points each from play. Like, Kerry's tactics were all wrong that day, whatever went on. Dublin lost last year by a point without Stephen Cluxton, Paul Mannion, Jack McCaffrey, Con O'Callaghan, their new waterboy Pat Gilroy. Like, Dublin have really, like, even Colin Pascal, who had a quiet day the last day, it's going to suit him, I think, playing against Dublin. Monaghan shut him down so well, it's going to suit him playing against Kerry. Like, it's going to be a titanic clash. I'm going to be flip-flopping between who I think will win it over the next 2 weeks. I just think after the weekend, I just sat there thinking that how are Kerry going to stop the Dubs, like? So, especially
if Fenton plays the way he played against Monaghan certainly in the second half, like, he was unbelievable. Yeah, and then the one thing is, like, a lot of the scores were coming from Costello in the first half, maybe all but one. I'm not going to say Dublin are over reliant on Costello for the scoring, because obviously other lads chipped in the second half, but they're going to need others to step up and chip in the scoring. And look, they have a forward line capable of it. They probably, a few of them had an off day against Monaghan, and I'm not saying Dublin were at their best, because they certainly weren't. But that's one area maybe Kerry can exploit.
Yeah, I think both sides probably suffered that a little bit in different ways. I actually think the Monaghan defenders shut down Dublin's forwards incredibly well. You could just see, I couldn't figure it out, and even chatting on the football last night, couldn't properly figure out what impact Stephen O'Brien made coming off the bench at half time, because you're sitting there thinking Paul Gainey hasn't got a shot off in anger, hadn't got a shot at all. He'd been involved in 2 goal chances and involved in the goal. Shawnee O'Shea had the assist for Gavin White, hadn't got a shot off. He was even being marked by Conor Doherty now at this stage, even though Padraig McGorgan had initially been set to mark him. So O'Shea wasn't in the game. And next thing, Stephen O'Brien comes on. He gets 2 turnovers in the first couple of minutes. He blocks a shot. Shawnee O'Shea kicks a superb point under pressure from play, and he's in the match. Like, Con O'Callaghan in the second half, I think he was blessed with that first point, Shane. I actually think Monaghan got screwed. Con O'Callaghan took steps. He got away with it. He'd been called for steps a few minutes beforehand. His first point off the left takes about 10 steps, and like, sometimes I'd often be happy to give the forward the benefit of the doubt if he's scoring a goal or if he's going through, but for a point I think Con should have been called for that. But like, Con got into that game, and Con had a big influence in that second half. I do think that it's going to be a game for the forwards in the All-Ireland final. Alright,
that's so we're going to have one more power rankings before it, are we? Is that what you're saying?
No. We might make a couple of corrections after the All-Ireland final if there's any egregious errors, but I don't think there are. And there's nothing personal, Shane.
No, of course. No, listen,
I see the head in you there, and I do apologise, and I hope this doesn't affect our relationship going forward.
Not at all. It's a tough job. I know you have a tough job ahead of you, you know. And
I didn't get up at a Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock to have an argument here. I didn't get up to upset you.
Monaghan prefer being underdogs anyway, Tommy, so starting 5th next year is maybe not the worst thing, you know.
Yeah.
I can cut the attention with an eye for.
You're a long way ahead of me, Shane, I'll put it that way.
That's true. I do love you, Tommy, still, you know.
Yeah, you too, pal.
Debating whether or not to leave a word in there or take it out. Anyway, that's this week's, and maybe the final one ever, potentially, of the Power Rankings.
Tommy knows his football, obviously listening to football pod the odd time.
And I was looking at the power rankings and I thought that Jesus Owen must still be feeling the effects of these mushrooms.
We shall see. Right. A couple of YouTube comments. I don't know if are they. Lads, 59th minute, Derry through on goal, man pulled down. Where's the penalty and black card, says Owen Hurley. The Derry crowd are very unhappy with the refereeing. They've gone back and relitigated it. And I'm just not sure you can do that. You know? I think they had plenty of chances to win it. It certainly wasn't all one-sided. Like, it did feel like, was it Gavin White had the eye injury and they're taking a free goal kick after that and McQuillan throws it up. Like, is that, I don't know, looked like he did actually have a proper genuine head injury. This was in the middle of the black card, and so therefore everybody's suspicious of it, but that looked fairly legitimate.
Yeah, neither game felt like either team were screwed by the referee. There were definite decisions in both games where you're like, maybe that could have gone the other way, but I don't think either team was screwed. Like, I don't think Monaghan and Derry would necessarily have gone through to the final based on the refereeing decisions alone. So yeah, look, I understand the frustration, especially from Derry fans there for instance in the Stephen O'Brien file maybe towards the end, but I don't think it's a massive sway on the game either way.
Ger, the league needs to mean something. Mayo win the league, says Shifty Lads. Provincial championships are very important for any players that don't win All Ireland. They value any provincial medal won, says Michael. It's true, they do, but that doesn't mean that the provincial has to dictate who ends up playing for Sam Maguire. It just shouldn't. It doesn't make any sense. Tommy should eat with a Colombian lady, says Danny Mac 1. And Damien Hanley says it's all about getting games into players' fitness, skills, experience. You have to offset the games the likes of Dublin and Kerry get. They just stretch further away from the bottom of the pack. That's always the point that Andy McEntee was making. And look, hopefully there's a natural carry on next year for Antrim in particular, and you see the benefit of that. We did see some benefit of it from Westmeath, and it'll just be interesting to see. I mean, obviously they had a change in management, and maybe if the management had been had a bit more time, even one of their players was talking specifically about the impact that Jo had. It was on OTBAM. Yeah. And so a full season of that next year, you know, you would assume that they're going to really target promotion, and that would be their way into Sam Maguire next year. But anyway, 8:36 this morning. I'm delighted to say Méabh De Búrca is with us to help continue our build up to the World Cup, which is 48 hours away. This time 48 hours, we're all going to be getting prepared for Ireland versus Australia. How are you feeling about it all?
Excited at this stage, yeah, looking forward to it. It feels like a long time coming, obviously, since last October they qualified, and there's been a lot of build up and talk about it, so I'm sure the girls will be looking forward to just getting out on the pitch on Thursday.
As we get closer, we start to get more concerned about the fact that the home nation are bloody good.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. I think everyone is enjoying the build up and all that, like I said, but then when it comes down to it and the reality of who we're going to face on Thursday, one night over there, morning here, it's slightly daunting, I suppose, when you look at it. Australia qualified for 7 of the last 8 World Cups, or the only 8 World Cups, and obviously it's our first rodeo, and they have a good track record. Like even last Friday they beat France 1-0, and before that, back in April, they beat England 2-0, and that was ending like England's 30-game unbeaten streak, so they're definitely a force to be reckoned with.
How important is it that we have actually played them in a friendly and done well against them in the last couple of years?
But that's the thing, yeah, we beat them 3-2 in Tala in, I think, September 21, so it'll give them confidence, the Irish girls, but at the same time only 10 of the girls who were in the squad that day who played are in the squad now, so it's a very changed squad at the same time. And Australia as well, I think they're coming to a bit of form at this stage. They did well in the Olympics. They finished 4th, I think, so they're kind of on a bit of a streak, although they did have a disastrous exit in the Asian Cup there. I think they were knocked out very early on, so in the quarterfinals, so they're a bit of a mixed bag, but I think they're coming to form at a good time, Australia, which obviously isn't ideal from an Irish perspective.
They're quite terrifying as well, Maeve, on the counter attack. Like, I know Marissa Shivas kind of spoke of that. They've been watching videos of the Australian team, but I guess the alternative to that is that this is a very defensive-minded Irish setup, so it's something different that the Australians maybe aren't quite used to coming up against.
That's it, exactly. I mean, obviously we play 5 at the back, but in reality it's going to be 7 at the back with the 2 sitting midfielders have been tucked in beside them. So, I don't think we're going to give them much chance to exploit in behind us. They do have a lot of speed and power up front, so it'll be difficult if we push on, I suppose, but I wouldn't expect that we will. I think we'll just be sitting in that defensive low block as we all know at this stage, and just try to counter-attack and aim for set pieces as well.
What about the occasion? Because we've spoken about those moments in advance of the game, the national anthem, the 80,000 people, Australian home advantage as well, albeit there'll be a lot of Irish there. Is that an occasion that might get to any of the Irish players, or is it just a case of a lot of them play in the WSL? They're used to playing in big stadiums. Some of them have Champions League experience, so surely they'll be used to it.
It remains to be seen, really. We won't know until kickoff how they're going to deal with it. It's not something you can prepare for. Like I said, Australia have already been in World Cups before, so that side of it they'll have dealt with. They're facing their own sort of battle in that they're trying to deal with the weight of an expectation of a nation too. So from that side, Australia will feel pressure, but for the Irish girls, it's going to be huge. Like I said, it's the first World Cup debut, so when they've played in stadiums with their clubs and that, it is on a different scale. The only thing that would kind of compare used to be the games against the US in terms of crowd and atmosphere, but in reality they're always friendlies and we go over there too, so it's not the same mindset. So just I suppose I hope that the girls can rise to the occasion, really.
Yeah, there's every chance that whatever nerves the Irish players are feeling, the Australians are feeling that too, and it's their ability to feed off their own crowd versus be slightly intimidated with the responsibility of opening the tournament and creating that sense of occasion and momentum behind the support and galvanising the country, because that has overwhelmed teams.
I mean, Exactly. You've seen teams in the past where they've just not performed well, maybe when it comes around to it, and they're the host nation. And obviously we hope that that's going to be the case with Australia on Thursday. And Ireland, I suppose it's just a matter of trying to ignore the crowd. And I think once you step over the white line, you do block it out. I mean, it's just 11v11, and you play your game like you would any other game. I know it is difficult, but like you said, the girls are used to the cameras and all that at this stage from playing with in high profile clubs. And I think as a player, I know whenever I played against sold out stadiums in America, that you do try to forget about it anyway, and you do to an extent, because you have your own job to do, and that's what they'll be focused on in training this week. They'll all know by the time kickoff comes exactly what they need to do on the pitch, and I think that's what they'll be focusing on more so than the hype and the buzz around it.
Maybe we asked you to pick your starting 11 or your expected starting 11 for the game against Australia, and you've gone with the same team that was picked for the game against France, which I think everybody expects at this stage. It's kind of like Vera basically told us that that's what she was going to do.
Exactly, and the 9 seconds of footage that came out against Colombia, I tried to zoom in on the grainy video, and that was the same team as well that started against Colombia, which she did say would be the starting team. So yeah, I can't foresee any kind of changes unless they're, God forbid there's a last minute injury or something, but I wouldn't expect there to be any changes, and I fully expect Elise to be playing as well.
Lily Agg fairly close maybe to that 11 as well, Miv?
I think so, yeah. I think before, I suppose a couple of weeks ago, it would have been a toss-up between her and Rusha Littlejohn. I think they're very similar players, and they sit into that holding mid spot, and I think she could see herself as unlucky having or to miss out if she does miss out, but I think she'll still play a big role in the tournament, because I think if one of the midfielders was to get injured, she'd be the first, I think, to spring from the bench, and likewise I think Amber Barrett would also be kind of waiting in the wings as well to get her opportunity, although again Vera just doesn't tend to make that many subs, so but I think the two of those will be vital. If we were to talk about kind of a 13 that would be likely to be seeing a lot of game time, maybe you could throw Abby Larkin or that in the mix, or the likes of Anya Gorman to come on and close out a game, hopefully, if we're winning, when we're winning, hopefully, she might come on and do a job defensively with her experience. But also the likes of Diane Calder there, who can do similar.
So France beat us 3-0 obviously. Katie McCabe went off after half an hour with precautionary withdrawal. Is that in any way a concern?
I suppose it is. I mean, I know Easy came on and she did do a job, but I think, she possibly, a couple of the goals she may have looked back on. But again, that's a learning curve, and it's good that these things happened against France. I think they'll iron out all those kind of defensive frailties before the game on Thursday. But yeah, it was slightly worrying, I suppose, that we seemed to crumble a little bit. But I don't know, you wonder, was it a direct impact of Katie going off, or would the game have turned in that direction anyway? But there's no doubt that in Katie McCabe and Denise O'Sullivan, they're standout world-class players, and they are the ones, I suppose, ironically, they're the ones that we had the 2 injury scares about. I think maybe there was a bit of panic when it was Denise who went down. I'm not sure if it was another player or a squad player who had went down, whether it have been the same kind of, I suppose, the same attention on it. Well, there wouldn't have been, there's no doubt about that. But I think it's just good now that, I suppose, all things going well, that Vera has a full squad to pick from, and that's all we can hope for, really.
By all accounts, Maeve, the Australian media seem to be picking up on Ireland's supposed physicality, and that seems to be the word that's been used on the back pages of a lot of the Australian newspapers. It's funny because even after, I think I said this after the France game as well, you almost would have liked to have seen more physicality from Ireland in the French game. I think the point was made as well in the analysis afterwards. Denise O'Sullivan picks up a yellow card late on. You don't want to encourage players to pick up yellow cards, but it showed a bit of bite, and maybe the first bit of bite in the whole game. So could we even be more physical possibly?
I think so, and that's what we've, always kind of had our game about, is that physicality, hardness, kind of tough to beat, and that mentality. But I think that will all shine through. I mean, when there's World Cup points on the line, everything changes. Obviously the friendly against France is also the last time, on the home soil before they head off to Australia. So, they're in the back of people's minds. They also don't want to get injured in those games. Whereas when it comes to Australia, it's just all or nothing, really. There's going to be no holding back from the girls at all. And like I said there, Denise brings a lot of physicality, so does Rusha, and the girls at the back as well, Niamh Fahey and Louise Quinn, they never shy out of a tackle. So I think we'll really see that come to the fore against Australia. And I'd say it's just a lot of talk, really. They have to talk about something, so I think they'll be well able to match it. The Australians, they won't be shying out any battles either, I'd say.
So I think a lot of people will be familiar with Sam Kerr. She is obviously one of the poster children of the entire World Cup, and has been for a long period of time. Their all-time top goal scorer, double winner with Chelsea last season. Who else should Ireland fans be concerned about from an Australia perspective?
I think beside her up top now is Caitlin Ford, who of course is our Katie McCabe's teammate at Arsenal, and she's sort of moved more recently into a central role alongside Kerr. She usually plays on the wing with Arsenal, but I think she's really effective for Australia, kind of in that central partnership with Kerr, who of course they're going to try to get a lot of ball to. So she'll definitely be one to watch. And I suppose from her perspective, maybe like that, with all the attention being on Kerr, she's kind of has a bit more of a free role to operate, and without that kind of weight of expectation on her shoulders. And there's also, so yeah, we'd have to talk about Ellie Carpenter too. She's one of the best right backs in the world. She got injured there, unfortunately, did her ACL in the 2022 Champions League final, of course, for Lyon. So she's only 23 at the moment. She was like the youngest player I think ever to play in the Olympics in 2016. So she's really going to be a force to be reckoned with. She's already played in USA, and obviously now got that big move to Lyon when she was only 20. So she's really, I think, going to be, well, again, hopefully not from an Irish perspective, but I think she will be one of the standout stars for Australia in this World Cup. It's probably her time to shine, really. And I suppose then another player might be, we'd have to have, with the Irish interest, I suppose, would be Mary Fowler. Her dad and granddad, of course, are Irish. So people might remember she scored 2 goals when they played in Tala. They lost to Tala that time, and she came off the bench as well and scored the winner against France on Friday. So she's really an impact sub, and I think she could make a big difference. I think her brother and sister actually played underage for Ireland already, so there was a bit of kind of, I suppose, controversy who she would play for herself, but obviously that's she's playing for the Aussies now at this stage, so that'll be a really interesting, I suppose, thing to see, in that she's going to be playing against us.
Maeve, what's your prediction?
It's always a difficult one, and it is hard to kind of get away from the hype and the hopes, I suppose, that we have. But I think it'll be a very, very difficult game. You might see a narrow loss, but I'm going to go for a draw, a 0-0 draw to start us off. Hopefully it'd be great to get a point on the board, it really would, and the girls in the way. Then looking forward to the rest of the group games and hopefully the rest of the tournament.
Great stuff. Thanks for being with us this morning, Maeve. Cheers.
Thank you.
It's Méabh De Búrca there, 50 odd caps for Ireland in her time. I think we'd bite your hand off for a 0-0 draw.
We don't score goals.
Words of Mick McCarthy.
Yeah, we don't score goals too often. So, and even chances, like, you'd like to see us get more chances. Kira Carusa, I think, wasn't it the disallowed goal for offside the last time? We need more. And I think Karen Duggan spoke in the aftermath of that French game about mental fatigue. The squad was picked, the players were stressed. That probably had something to do with the performance against France. You can't switch off, as Marissa Shiva said, for that last 5 minutes of the first half like they did against France. They need to be comfortable being uncomfortable, which they're going to be uncomfortable against Australia, let's be honest. If they can just play for 90 minutes, and it sounds so simple, but don't switch off for the 5 minutes before, after half time, that sort of thing. Do you know, that's kind of been our undoing in a lot of games. So yeah, fingers crossed that doesn't happen.
They've risen to the occasion every time they've been asked to do it so far in competitive matches, and that's a really brilliant thing to have. You know, you think of Irish sports people who were able to do that before, and Derval O'Rourke always springs to mind as like always at her best at the time when she needed to be at her best. So fingers crossed they can channel a bit of their inner Dervals. Carl Mullaney's with us. Carl, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning, lads. How's it going?
You got the memo.
Yes,
lads, I figured the odd man out here,
getting into the spirit like Ger.
Shane hates football and hates Ireland.
Well, I was waiting until Thursday.
Why would you wait?
Did you wear a Monaghan jersey last week?
I didn't on air. No. I had one of the little, what do you call them, headbands.
Yeah.
Literally around my head for the crappy quiz. So
hats, flags, or headbands.
Yeah. So I went for that. But no, I'll wear mine on tomorrow and Thursday.
Carl, would Sligo have preferred to have won the Tailteann Cup or to have played in Sam Maguire?
No, I'd prefer to be in the Sam Maguire definitely every year, and I think the quality of the Tailteann Cup.
Hammered.
No, I think Drew Kildare exposed to a better level of football. I think you should always aspire to be in the top competition if you can be.
But now they don't get a team holiday. There's no no silverware.
I think they'll benefit a lot from playing those 3 matches, and I think a lot of the players would tell you that they want more exposure to the better teams. Some players actually would have the train of thought and the opinion that the old league system of Division 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, where it was kind of 16 teams in Division 1.
I think, was it Neil Ewing used to make that case? Yeah.
I think Neil would have made that point, and Niall Murphy maybe as well at times, that more exposure to the better teams would have helped. And you can probably track the drop off in some counties' performance to change in the league structure.
I think that's not cause and effect. I think that's coincidence. I've seen this case made by people who are deeply embedded in the nuances of the impact of the league, and I just disagree with it. I think that it has to do with the professionalisation of the top teams and them getting their stuff together when it comes to preparation. So when those matches were being played in October and November and the conditions were crap, we're talking about an era where strength and conditioning was basically lapse, that there was no science behind it, that there was no extra spend on physio, and I think those counties got left behind, and it's a fairly handy excuse to go, we never play the best teams anymore.
Yeah, I take your point there. I think Sligo would be a case in point where in, I think 97 in October, November time, they beat Dublin and they beat Kerry, and Kerry were All-Ireland champions in 97, so a couple of months later they lost to Sligo in the league. So you do have a point there, but I do think more exposure to the better teams will help counties that are trying to benefit. I do think the standard of the Tailteann Cup was quite good though this year, that when you consider I thought Meath were really, really impressive in their 2 matches against Antrim and against Down in the final. Down were obviously hugely impressive all the way through as well, and teams the likes of Fermanagh had a really good spring, maybe didn't produce it in the Tailteann Cup, but I do think the Tailteann Cup was at quite a good level.
Cavan as well, yeah.
Cavan in there as well, yeah. So
who had a better year then for you, Meath or Sligo?
I would say Sligo. A provincial final, draw with Kildare in the All-Ireland series, and I think Sligo will probably take more from it, having had exposure to better teams.
Trophy in the league as well.
Won the Division 4 league. But the litmus test for Meath is how much benefit they take from that, whether they'll be at a better level in Division 2 next year.
Yeah, I fully agree. I fully agree with the Meath thing. I do think though that if Sligo had won Division 4 and then won the Tailteann Cup, you'd be like, this is incredible, Sligo football and the underage stuff, whereas it just feels like they were out of their depth against the Dubs. Anyway.
Well, there's no question they were out of their depth against the Dubs, yeah. But that does expose the flaws that you have very seriously, where you can learn from that. Like, I know, like, Dublin pushed up on the Sligo kick-out, and there's actually Jim McGuinness is talking about that in the Irish Times today, about the importance of pushing up on kick-outs and stuff like that, and whether teams are better to sit off and push up. But you do learn, I think, from stuff like that.
I did wonder if Monaghan had an owl flick on in them for the long begging kickouts, would there, and runners moving on, was that one of the ways to it didn't look like they were ready for it, that the Dubs were actually going up and knocking down, which is, you know, like, would McGuinness's team, they had the runners to run on, and Monaghan are built for it. I don't know if maybe in the panic of the last 10 minutes.
There was one begging kick out where it was definitely put over to an area where there were maybe 2 Dubs and one, maybe Gary Mohan was over there, but there was one, if you go on the other side, Carl Gallagher, who's tall, was up against Owen Merchant, who is small. So I mean, launch at that side and Gallagher's winning that ball all day long.
It's a very tactical sort of thing, the kickouts. McGuinness also says in his article today that he was surprised that Kerry kind of stood off the Derry kickout for so long in their match. When you think about then, between I think 65 and 70, Kerry pushed up and they won. I think they won 3 or 4 kickouts in a row and got a couple of scores off it. Now maybe you have to wait until the game is a little bit more stretched to do that.
That is a really good point, because when we were watching the game, I was like, oh, Dubs are, you can't do this for the whole game. I was like, why can't you do it for the whole game? We'll ask Malachy O'Rourke that, he's standing by. We're going to get to him in a second. I do need to talk to you about Rory McIlroy, who's not doing any press this week in advance of the Open. He's just going to keep it nice and tight-knit, nice and relaxed. There's photographs of him and Harrington and Lowry playing yesterday, and he's got his manager and somebody else strolling the fairways with him, and he's laughing his head off. He's pretty relaxed.
Yeah.
It's all coming up, Rory.
Hopefully it wasn't a week too early at the Scottish Open. By the way, the 2 irons that he hit off the tee on 17, and then that, I think it was a 2 iron on 18.
Yeah, stinger.
There won't be a better shot this season. That was just incredible. But look at, I mean, he's the player in form, and depending on the conditions, I know the players had to come off the course yesterday at Hoylake early in the morning because of a red weather warning with rain and wind and stuff. So it looks like the conditions are going to be quite difficult if that weather persists through the week. But I think McIlroy has to be the favourite at the outset. Obviously, he's won there before as well too, so let's hope he can keep it going. I thought Pádraig Harrington as well, actually, even though he didn't finish that well at the Scottish Open, maybe at a stretch this week that he can be competitive as well. And Lowry showed plenty last week too.
I think Larry's coming in under the radar with his final round, and also feeling pretty good about himself. The one thing about Harrington was he started talking about the Ryder Cup. Just don't talk about it. And then the rounds 3 and 4 were like, you can't be doing that. Luke Donald rang him and said, oh yeah, I'm thinking about you. Just don't tell us. It's a private conversation.
But I love his attitude that he's willing to change his schedule to come back and try and get in the team. And you know, him and McIlroy as a pairing maybe in the Ryder Cup would be something else. Him and Lowry.
It would be amazing if he was to make it. Like, it would be another crowning achievement on an already incredible, ridiculous, unprecedented
he's up
career.
there in terms of our best ever sports people, I have to say. Like, I think he definitely has helped inspire a whole generation really of Irish major winners. Pádraig Harrington,
he's winning more prize money now than he ever did when he was winning majors on the normal tour. Carl, good stuff.
Thanks, lads.
Thanks a million. Right, Malachy O'Rourke, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, Ger. Morning, see it.
Morning, Malachy. How are things?
Why can't you push up on a kick out all the time?
Well, you can. If you go that way, you can push up on it. There's obviously risks with that as well, and that I suppose the biggest problem is the teams are sometimes a wee bit unwilling to do that, because somebody with a long kick out can bypass so many players, and particularly now a lot of teams are flooding a lot of players into the defensive zone for kick outs. So if you push everybody up, if you go man to man on that, for example, you could be pushing maybe 12 players up there. If the ball is kicked right across that all those players, you're leaving yourself very open at the back. You're leaving yourself completely exposed, and that's probably the biggest reason. And it is a very difficult thing to actually get that right, to get pushed up all the time, and it takes a lot of practice, believe it or not, just to get those things fine tuned. Because if you have 1 or 2 fellas who aren't completely in sync, the goalkeeper can get it away anyway. So it's not just as easy probably as just saying push up on every kick out.
And so when we're seeing matches like the two at the weekend, where it feels like there's a particular moment when Dublin and Kerry both decide that this is going to be, we're going to be very aggressive on the opposition kick out. How does that happen? Is that like an in-game decision? Is it pre-planned, last 10 minutes we're going to do this? What's behind that?
One of the big things there was when they are awarded a free kick. When the team is awarded a free kick, it gives players time to get organised and to get into the shape they want, because the free kick has to be taken. Then there's a lapse in time, as when it's scored, by the time the goalkeeper gets the ball set up and so on, and so you can have your players in position. In open play, if the ball goes wide, obviously the keeper can get the ball straight away on the tee and away before people are set up. So sometimes if you push too hard, in that case you're sort of wasting energy. You're getting up and the ball is going to get away to a free man anyway. So it's just picking your times, and I suppose then there are at times teams will decide at a particular stage in the game to put on an aggressive press and I suppose take a chance in a way.
So that's the parallel between the two games at the weekend, where there's the Stephen O'Brien free that Kerry kick and take a period of time over that. Sean O'Shea takes his time, kicks it over the bar, and then everybody pushes forward for Kerry. It's the Mannion free the day before against Monaghan, Dublin press after that, and that's the turning of both those games, where there's 2 or 3 scores in a couple of minutes that puts the daylight between the two winners.
Yeah, and that I suppose it gave them at that stage of the game, it gave them that chance to set up like that. I suppose there's something to do with teams getting a wee bit tired at that stage, a wee bit of mental fatigue, I suppose, sets in and things like that there. So it's a combination of things, but there's no doubt it's the time that the free kick gives you time to set up and get your structure in place to make it really difficult then for the opposition to get the kick away or players to get into space to get a short one away. So that's probably the biggest factor in that.
And is there a decision made on the pitch that we're going to do it at this particular time, or is it predetermined in your experience? Generally, if there is a free kick, we're going to push on the back of that free kick, irrespective of what period of the game that happens.
No, not really. It depends on a number of things. It depends, I suppose, what the score is at a particular time. If you need to push up, if you need to be aggressive to try and get a score or two, if the game is evenly poised, if you're 5 or 6 points ahead, there's no need to do that. You can sort of be more aware of keeping the structure nice and tight if they do get the ball and so there's a number of variations come into that, and but at times as well, it will be just up to the players. It was very noticeable towards the end of the Monaghan Dublin game that it was sort of in line with where Brian Fenton, James McCarthy, Kieran Kilkenny, and those boys were taking responsibility themselves for actually where they were positioning themselves. So it was obviously very good sort of in-game management by those experienced players, dictated a lot of what was going on towards the end, I felt.
Could Monaghan have done anything differently in that last 5-10 period, Malachy, do you think?
I suppose the one thing that stood out for me again, and I suppose it partly do it with Monaghan, but more so with Dublin, and how many times over the last number of years have we seen Dublin in that last 10-minute period, just their game management, their decision making, everything else is so good. I think in that last period, last quarter possibly, I think Dublin got maybe 11 shots away. Monaghan maybe got 3. So Dublin had an awful lot of possession of the ball, but as well as that, just the leadership they have there, the amount of times those players have been in that position before, and that is really, really crucial. They're able to stay calm, and I suppose that's what often happens when teams see the finish line. It's more so maybe teams going out of what they're normally doing, whereas Dublin can stay in. Dublin's, as I said, their decision making, their composure and everything else, if anything, they just go up a level. And I thought they really controlled the game well in that period. and their shooting efficiency was very good. I think maybe did they get 6 out of 8 from play or something like that. Now, Mullins wasn't bad either. I think Monaghan, but again, Monaghan had a lot less of the ball and had only maybe 2 shots or something like that from play. So now again, could Monaghan have kept the ball better? Could they have worked something better for kickouts? I suppose that's the areas that they'll be looking at, and they'll be sort of feeling they could have done better than that. Also, and I heard Vinny reference it after the game, they actually, when they had the ball, they turned it over a lot, and it gave Dublin that oxygen, whereas Dublin didn't really do that. Dublin were very efficient in that last 10-minute period.
Conor McManus was obviously brilliant, and like the hope, I guess, for Monaghan supporters is that he stays on for at least another year. But Anthony Miles was making the point yesterday that he would have held off McManus until, I guess, the 40-45 minute mark when he's been kind of taken off the bench for a lot of games this season. Would you go along with that? I guess it's hard in hindsight to say it, but would you have started McManus, I guess?
It is a tricky one in that he did so well coming on in the other games, and having said that, I can see why he was playing so well, and I suppose it was a case that the most important thing, I suppose, was that the boys were still in the game at half time, that the game was very much alive, and I presume they just felt that he was going well, that they felt that he had that threat in the full forward line that would cause Dublin problems, and that he would enable them to be in a good position at half time, in a good position with 50 minutes left, and that certainly worked, so I don't think it was, and he finished the game very strong as well, so I can see why they did it, and I don't see that it cost them the game or anything like that. It worked fairly well, and it was noticeable that the starting number of the more experienced players, and it certainly did give them a good foothold in the game.
Yeah, 3-point lead at half time and still in the game, 68 minutes. I think it's hard to second guess any of the decision making in terms of the selection, because it certainly seems to have worked. Just in terms of the trends of the games that we're seeing at the moment, because we're at the very end of the season now, there's only one significant game left for us to look back on. Did we see an evolution, like even in Derry being so attacking and Monaghan in that first half trying to take in the game to Dublin, maybe could have even taken it a bit more with the amount of possession they had? Is there a slight swing back of the pendulum, however slightly, towards a more direct attacking style?
Yeah, possibly is, and I suppose that was very evident at the weekend. But again, I think that it's possibly as well that the teams maybe do feel that when you go to Croke Park, you have to be more expansive. That sort of deep defending game and hoping to beat teams by frustrating them and then attacking sporadically, I suppose, but efficiently. I don't think that's going to work. I think the games in Croke Park will usually be won by teams scoring 1-18, 2-18, that, and I think you have to give yourself the chance to be able to do that, and you can only do that by keeping forwards up the field, by attacking with good efficiency and that sort of thing. So I think that is possibly part of that as well. I think the goalkeepers as well. It was interesting, with Monaghan in the first half and Derry as well. The thing about the goalkeeper coming out, with Rory coming out in the first half for Monaghan, it means that particularly the way Cluxton plays, Cluxton stays in his lane, he doesn't really come out. So it meant that every time Monaghan attacked in the first half, they had an extra man, so they had 15 attacking 14 all that. And then, rather than Dublin couldn't go man to man out the field, and it meant then that if a player was running into trouble, all they had to do was knock the ball back to Rory, who was the outlet, and then they were able to keep possession. So it's a harder thing for a team to defend against. And then Monaghan kept the ball well, didn't rush things, didn't sort of go into crowded areas, and then the runners were coming from deep, and that's where they created a couple of goal chances from and things like that. So I thought Monaghan kept the ball well and worked their scores, and I think that is you saw with Derry the next day as well, that Lynch was on so much ball, and again a lot of the times he's not been marked, obviously, because there's no direct marker for him, and it gave him the time and space to get into areas and then lay the ball off. He had a couple of chances himself, but that certainly is making a big difference.
So we live in a copycat world. Can we expect this now to become a thing?
Well, I suppose the champions often define the next trend in the game. And I suppose if Dublin win and Cluxton isn't coming out, he doesn't stray much further than, I suppose, 20, 30 metres out from goal. Again, it'll go back to, well, look at the goalkeeper coming out like that isn't needed, but certainly you can see the benefits of it. The both Derry, like even the goal that Derry got at the start. If you actually watch that move back, Oran Lynch came up that wing. There was actually 2 Derry players being man marked, if you like. One of them left McKinless and went to Oran Lynch. Oran Lynch was then able to pop the ball off to McKinless, who then had a sort of a free run in on the goals. He popped it off to Brent Rogers on a supporter run. He took the initial shot, and then McKinless put it in. But it just showed you in a very small way, it just showed you how that extra man coming out, the goalkeeper, can actually work and can disrupt defences. And I suppose the way a lot of teams are setting up with so many players back, that's what you're looking to do. You're looking to get the wee areas where you can get mismatches or overloads and things like that, and that gives you the wee bit of space to operate in.
It doesn't sound like you think there should be radical changes to the rules to save the game, which apparently is dying, even though we've just witnessed 2 amazing semi-finals.
Yeah, well, I suppose all I'm saying, I'm just looking at what I can actually see happening, and I can see the benefits of it. Whether it's actually helping the game as a spectacle, that's a completely different matter. And it probably is. It means, for example, what I was saying there, it means that in other times, likes of Dublin could press up and really put pressure on that middle third, and then they were able to break away and get scores, and it left. Whereas now they're very conscious of that as well. They're very conscious that if they push up really aggressively, at times out there, the ball will be slipped and somebody will be away. So they have to be really careful. Whether it's actually, as I say, improving the game as a spectacle, that's hard to know. Certainly throughout the year, there's a lot of games that there's a lot of ball being just, the possession was being kept and teams were right back, and it was an awful lot of probing before anything really happened. And so look at it, the thing about changing the rules, the people who are over teams are always looking obviously to see, well, how do we get round this? What's the best way? If they're not necessarily, when you're in that environment, you're not necessarily looking to make the game as attractive as you can. You're more trying to be effective as a coach and trying to think, right, how do we work things to our own benefit here, So no, I would agree that I do think that if you want to make the game more attractive, certainly there has to be maybe a couple of tweaks. All right.
Okay, that was brilliant. Thanks a million for joining us. Cheers.
No problem at all, boys.
It's Malachy O'Rourke giving us some thoughts on the weekend's action. If you want to get involved in the conversation, we'd love to hear from you. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. Make sure you don't miss all the action in Rugby Daily today in your OTB podcast network, bringing you everything you need to know about rugby. Get your favourite local restaurants delivered to your door with Deliveroo. Just open the app, browse some great offers, take your pick, and they'll take care of the rest. Deliveroo, food, we get it, on the OTB podcast network for you today. The very latest episode of our Coigig World Cup preview, that Ruisha Littlejohn chat in full, and the football pod with Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue, and Tommy Rooney making the point that turns out Kerry have Michael Jordan playing for them. After the break, James Ryan and our front row depth chart ahead of the Rugby World Cup. First, Matt Williams from last night talking about the ruthlessness of the rugby culture in New Zealand.
I have deepest respect for the Kiwis because I've been against them my whole life. But the last year when they were losing, it was the way they treated Foster and their team was a disgrace. And I've said that before and I'll say it again. Now they're winning. Everything's cool. I really don't have a lot of time for those comments from them because they never ever allow their coaches or their team to have a bad 6 weeks, to even try things. We're a year out from the World Cup. We've got to try things. They mightn't work. Yeah, they've got to win. Unless they're winning every single game, every single week, there's a crisis. And that can be very much a negative in a World Cup, which we saw for 20 years was. But I really feel for Foster. That's why he's not running again. It took a huge toll on him personally. And I'm really glad they're winning for him, because he got abused like no one should ever be abused in sport. They're just sportsmen. And he didn't do anything wrong. He didn't really go into disrepute, didn't say anything, didn't do anything. His team was just losing. And I'm really pleased for him and Joe that the team is doing so well. I think it's because, let me tell you, Joe, absolute joy to watch. That was a pleasure.
You're listening
to OTB AM.
The countdown to the World Cup is on. The Koigig Pod, counting down to more moments like this.
And it is Captain Fantastic, Katie McCabe, who has scored it.
OTB AM.
The Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball.
Dwayne Griffin from Kerry here. I have to say Derry were very unlucky, showed themselves to be a much better footballing side than I thought. They should stick to that game plan more going forward. Both Kerry and Dublin have weaknesses, which is why it's such an interesting final. It's 50-50, but I think the Dubs have home advantage.
That's what makes it most interesting. I think neither of them are probably at the top of their game. They've all shown teams ways in which to get at them. But I still expect it to be a high quality final. Like, not a case of peaking for the final, but both of them are coming good, and especially those last 5-10 minutes of those two games. Like,
we'll turn our attention to the hurling from tomorrow, and we will obviously be talking about the football in more detail next week. But now to rugby. I'm delighted to say James Tracy is with us. James, good morning to you. How are you?
Gents, fantastic. How are you?
Yeah, very good. We should start with the Sexton news. The rest of the world is outraged. I think justice has been fully served here, and Johnny's been heavily punished for, a few mild words after the game. What's everybody got their knickers in a twist about?
I think it's about right, to be honest. You see people online comparing it to Dylan Hartley and stuff like that, but like his track record versus Sexton's, Sexton's a fiery player on the pitch. I think people forget a lot that he's never sent off for it. He's never, it's never, people might feel personally that he goes too far, but he's a competitor. If anyone's watched The Last Dance, he's very Michael Jordan-esque in how competitive he is and driving the standards, whether it be his own team, whether it be officials. That's just who he is, and you wouldn't change him for the world. I think 3 games is fair. It's obviously, if it was anyone else going into a World Cup without having played in 6 months, you'd be a bit worried. But I've seen him come off the back of big layoffs, and he'll hit the ground running. I have no kind of worries or hesitations about him not getting to play in those warm-up games. But yeah, to be honest, I'm delighted that I thought they might throw the book at him, but I think the fact that he's such a clean track record definitely helped him.
Yeah, I do. All joking aside, 3-game ban in international rugby, there's basically 12 or 14 games a year if you're lucky. It's a quarter of a season. It's a massive ban, really. It just so happens that, if this was in the middle of the Six Nations, it'd be devastating because that'd be the end of his tournament, or it'd be 3/5 of his tournament gone. It just so happens to coincide with the warm-ups. That's a fluke. If he'd done this after the first game of the World Cup, he'd be out for the rest of the group stages. So, it is a serious ban. And the rest of the world giving out about it, whatever.
Yeah, let them say what they want to say. They're going to try get under our skin about a generational talent that we have that's coming into his last World Cup, the last dance for him. So of course they're going to want them to be not playing for Ireland. We're one of the best teams in the world. They're going to be trying to get rid of every good player we have to get an opportunity. So listen, I don't blame them. I'd be calling for the head of any other top player in the world for New Zealand or South Africa or something like that if we had a chance to get rid of one of them for a World Cup. But listen, we have now for the beginning of it, and the momentum is going to start building and it's going to start getting exciting. But all the rest of the external chatter and everything, it's just lip service, and it's not going to affect hopefully our run into it.
You have to respect the mitigating circumstances as well there, James, in Sexton's previous disciplinary record, because you mentioned The Last Dance, the amount of attention Johnny Sexton gets in the pitch, I'm sure he gets plenty of ribbon and words pointed in his direction, and he gets a lot of physical attention as well. So to have a clean physical record or a disciplinary record as a fly half is all the more impressive.
Yeah, and it's not even as an out half, because a lot of out halves typically wouldn't be the most, what would you say, not necessarily aggressive, but confrontational. I think it's just part of his character that he's unbelievably fiery. It gets him going, it gets everyone going, it gets the energy in the crowd, in the stadium, within the team going, and like, you wouldn't change that for the world. You know, sometimes he boils over, but so do we all. You know, and I think it leaves us in a great spot. You know, if we miss kind of the first World Cup game or 2 or 3 of the pool games, I think we'd kind of be sweating a bit, thinking he could only come back in for, you know, maybe the latter stages, assuming the groups go well. But I think the fact he'll be available from the get-go, minus the few pool games, which I'm sure he would have had limited involvement in anyway. You know, he wouldn't have been playing 80 minutes in all 3 of them. So I think we can just get excited now about what's ahead. And we've the last chance to look at one of probably the most influential Irish player of all time. He's had a bigger impact off the pitch as he has on the pitch, with players, with backroom staff, with all the stuff that a lot of people wouldn't see. You know, and a lot of the greats are, you know, great on the pitch, but he's also great off the pitch, and someone you go to war for.
We've had Brian O'Driscoll talk to us before about how long it takes you to feel battle hardened as the season wears on. How does Sexton replicate the hits that he's going to get when he actually takes the field in a competitive game without getting injured in training? Like, what's that balance like?
I think he's, how many years is he? You know, he's whatever, 17 years in the game. He knows how to get himself ready without having to do proper full-on bone-on-bone contact. There's levels you can get to in training, whether it be with tackle bags, tackle suits, different things. But he only knows one way, and that's playing at the line, playing hard, and he's going to be fine. I know, like, his fitness will be amazing. They're going to get a great pre-season in. He's had like a full run in. If anything, if you want to do a massive spins on it, it's going to give him a chance to rehab all the other little niggles that he might have had that he would have been playing on with. So, like, if you want to turn it completely on its head, it's been like, this is probably the freshest and best version of him that we're going to get, because how many times can you be like, right, I'm going to have a sabbatical that's going to lead me into my last competition ever that I'm going to play. So he's got all the time in the world to hit the gym, get every bit of fitness, get every little niggle out of the way before he gets to run into it. So if you want to be an eternal optimist and flip it on its head, you could look at it the other way either.
We asked you to do your depth chart for us for the front row. Slight changes this time from one of the ones that we've done recently, but I think fairly obvious. Loosehead, number 1 is Porter, 2 is Healy, and 3 is Kilcoyne. Kilcoyne is shoehorning himself back into that conversation with a late burst.
I think he's, but it's the energy he brings. And there's another guy as well. He's an unbelievable person to have in an environment. He's like unbelievable crack, but also like trains unbelievably hard. But what he brings is just something a little bit different, you know. And I think it'll depend on who you're playing against. Where you kind of bring him into a game as maybe even like as a second choice, where you're looking for that impact of, you know, he's going to come on, he's going to give you, you know, 10, 15 carries off the bench, and it's going to be exciting, full of energy. He's going to put in a few big shots. He's an energizer, and I think there's a big value for that on and off the pitch, especially in a World Cup squad. And like his value within that group is kind of, it's hard to quantify, but from being in environments with him, I can see why he's part of that group.
Porter has become one of the great Irish athletes. His impact on the field over the last couple of years, the transformation, I suppose, in his reliability in all sorts of ways. It's just a maturing of somebody that we knew had massive potential, but he's really starting to deliver on that potential.
Yeah, I think miles on the clock at the top end is it's only going to make it better and better and better. And I think he's still not even there yet. You know, I think he probably, once his scrummaging is unbelievably powerful, but he comes up against the best players in the world, and I think when he reaches his full potential at that, I think he's going to be probably one of the best loose heads to ever do it. He's genuinely one of the strongest, most freakish, talented / athletes I've ever come across, and that's coming after Cian Healy, who was the original freak of nature to come through Leinster in that role. So I'm excited for the player he could become, but he's already an unbelievable talent, and very lucky to have. Like, you look through that front row, and if you're talking World 15, they're all in a conversation. Depending on form and depending on everything, they're all in a conversation for starting jersey. So, like, what a spot to be in going into a World Cup.
The age profile as well, I guess, in that position in particular, loose head, like Porter 27, Healy and Kilcoyne obviously a bit further along in their journey in their 30s. Like, what's coming after that? I know Josh Wycherley a couple of years ago, I think Keith Wood had him kind of as someone who beyond those three maybe was a name to look out for, but are the options thereafter in terms of the younger players there?
Yeah, of course. You've had Jeremy Loughman in the Irish camp. I think he's been unbelievable for Munster. He's the likes of Ed Byrne, who hasn't really got a proper go at international level, who's been again a massive presence off the pitch, but also a leader on the pitch for Leinster. And I think if he actually got a run of games, he'd be in green like a lot more often than he's only gotten, I think, maybe one or two caps, but he's been in camp a decent bit. But again, he's a player who's probably underappreciated. But yeah, there's lots of young, good talent coming through in Leinster also. But as I said, the age profile of that starting front row there is quite young anyway. We're going to get a few more, especially Tighes. Yeah, he's in his 30s, but he's only coming into his prime really in tighthead years.
We've got Sheehan at number 1 at hooker, and Kelleher's 2, Herring is 3. Sheehan has just become one of our best players over the last 12 months, where it's like he's just a sensation.
Yeah, I don't think anyone could deny that it's his jersey, and when I was talking about World 15 kind of players, you're the top form in this season. I don't know how you're not having him as your starting hooker in your World 15. He's really just. Everyone has parts of their game they can improve on, but he has really, really filled in the gaps from when he came in as a young pup in Leinster to what he's become now. He had the raw talent, and he just needed to figure out a little bit about the detail of the game and understanding of the game and the scrummaging side of things. But he's clearly gone away. He's worked on it unbelievably hard, and he's reaping the rewards of his hard work, and that's the stuff that no one talks about. Is the unseen bits. We all see him, throwing these offloads and making line breaks and everything, but it's his actual core roles as a hooker which he's come on, and he's, as I said, he's in the conversation for one of the best hookers in the world. When you're getting better at scrummaging, when you were talking about Porter and Sheehan, is that hours on the scrum machine? Is it video analysis? Is it like literally working with somebody who's analysing your body position? What's the technicalities that you're actually doing on a day-to-day basis to get better? So it's everything, all of the above. It's time in the saddle. That's why like props and hookers tend to come into their own when they're a little bit older, because you kind of have to learn the hard way from more experienced guys who've been around the block. But I know, like, Tyke Furlong would have taken an interest in anyone who wants to learn. He loves the scrums, but he would have taken an interest in Dan, because Dan was eager to learn when he came in. He saw the talent there. And, he would sit down, he'd talk through different feels of what are you feeling in there, and he'd talk through how to counteract that, and he'd show on the video, and like, okay, you think you're doing this is what your body actually looks like, and look at the overhead view here. Then you go down maybe into the gym and you might do some setups or stuff like that. So just, you're kind of familiarizing yourself that when you're in the heat of the moment, when you're absolutely wrecked, when you're about to pack down for a scrum that really matters, you've done the reps, you know what the right feeling is that's good, you know who you're playing against, what they're likely to do, and if they do this, you know how to work with your props to counteract that. If they're going the other way, you know, again, okay, here's an opportunity to attack. And also building the relationship. So like those guys now are getting reps for Ireland, they're getting reps for Leinster. That is like, I can't explain to you how much of a benefit that's going to be to them in the next 3, 4, 5 years. It's already reaping its rewards, but it's just building that familiarity. All of a sudden, you know, I remember I talked before about knowing what people are good at. You know how to get them into a good spot. And if I can make Tig feel comfortable and feel like he can attack and keep everything together, you're going forward. You know, or if we're playing against a loose head, I know he struggles, you know, he finds very kind of tricky or hard to play against. Like Kilcoyne would be a perfect example. Kilcoyne is like very awkward loose head to scrummage against for a tight head. So you've got to, if I'm playing with Tig, I know going in that, right, I need to set him up in a way that he feels comfortable dealing with Kilcoyne, and then we can worry about everything else. I'm not just worrying about, right, let's get in here and go forward and, you know, I'm in my own page. I have to be aware of, okay, is Porter happy with the way that this, you know, it might be a bad matchup for him. So, okay, right, I'm going to put a bit more priority on making sure Porter's in a good position, making sure Porter's happy with how he's set up so that we've the best chance of success. And we're not just thinking about going forward, getting a penalty. It's actually a little bit more than that. It's thinking, okay, how can we set ourselves up for success here? And that's what time in the saddle for Dan over the next while is going to get better and better at, because he's already getting to a point now. You see Ireland, their scrum is brilliant. So he's obviously reaching those levels. But the longer he's in that seat, the better he's going to get at becoming more aggressive, because he knows how to set everyone up properly so they can attack a bit more.
When you're in that scrum, do you automatically know that they're comfortable beside you? And is that like body position? Are they telling you? Do they have tells where there's like specific grunts or heavy breathing that you're like, oh, that's not a good sign?
So there's a lot of feeling to it, you know, and like Tig he's very vocal about whether he's comfortable or where he's not comfortable, and that's what you want. You want direct feedback, but there's a feeling of, it's like a glow of like when something just fits right, of like the bind and everyone's set up. When you've done it over and over and over and you've chatted through what works, what doesn't work, you just know that right feeling. You're balanced, you're primed, you're ready to go. Everyone's on the same page, and it's a feeling that's kind of hard to describe, but it only comes from doing it wrong time after time after time and talking to each other until you find the right way of doing it, and then repping and being on the same page, as I said, in the video analysis room, knowing who you're playing against and knowing what the guys either side of his strengths are, so you can make them be the best they can be, and then everyone goes forward from there.
Sheehan's tall, isn't he? So that obviously would have taken a bit of time for them to get used to that.
Massively, yeah. So he's about 6'3", I'd say, and again, that it's a very different, you know, you'd be adjusting where you set up on versus say like myself, or say like John McKee be smaller than me, Ronan probably be an inch taller than me, so there wouldn't be too much between me and Ronan. But even like the breadth, the width of your body, and like it's just everyone's just a different feel. So that's what I said, continuity, it all makes such a difference in terms of knowing how it works. And again, does your loose head and your tight head, like, do their styles complement each other? That's another consideration for you as a hooker, because then you have to kind of like either rein one of them in or kind of get the other one's ear and be like, right, we're going to have to work together on this so we can make him look good, and then we all are benefiting. So there's layers to it all, but I think the three of them now had so many reps together in big games, and it's only going to keep getting better and better. And you know, when you're on the outside looking in, you want to be in the middle of those two, because you're in the middle of those two, you're starting big games, and it's, as long as you're doing well, you're not going to be moving anytime soon. So it's going to be a hard nut to crack to get back here to break up that front row, but it's amazing seeing the three of them grow together.
So you've got Furlong, Bealham and Healy at tight heads. Bealham really come of age in the last 2 years, to your point about maturing. He'd obviously been around the squad for a long period of time, but when Furlong went down, we didn't miss a beat. It was like, hang on a second, this guy's like right there now, so there's no sense of that. And then just Cian Healy's remarkable ability to be on both sides is ludicrous, really.
Yeah, so like Finlay again, like Finlay be a very different type of scrummager to Tig, and it's understanding that, but he's now found a way. I'd been unbelievably effective at international level. His defense, like his ability, his chop tackling is unbelievable. It did a metric in Connacht 2 years ago. It was kind of like how many tackles you could get in a row without missing a tackle, and then as soon as you missed one, you had to start all over again, and did a leaderboard, and it had to be an effective chop or whatever. And I think Finlay was about 4x the closest person to him on that leaderboard of effective chop tackles made, and little unseen stuff, but he's got the slick hands. We think of the Hugo Keenan try, but he's a great guy to have, but he's also a really good tight end around the pitch, and that seems to be the new type of tight end, is someone who's effective in the scrum and really good around the pitch. And unless you're an unbelievable savage in the scrum, you kind of can get away with not having the silky skills, but he's very effective at scrum time, and he really suits that new kind of Irish game plan of everyone kind of having to be able to play with the ball at the line and have an understanding of how to manipulate defences.
The 20s had a brilliant run as well, James. Like, I know you've been picking out a couple of the players that potentially could make it a senior. I think the last time we were in a world final at that age grade was 2016, and quite a number of players came through. So who do you reckon could make that step up, I guess?
Well, I think Mangan has shown himself to be a real enforcer. Now, I would have had a bit of a crossover with him towards the end of my career, and I actually didn't realise how young he was when he came in. Like, he's a absolute beast of a man, and very exciting young talent. Good Newbridge College man as well. But yeah, he's a volume, absolute bruiser who gets through a lot of work and would make a lot of people look better. So you wouldn't necessarily, you notice the volume of the carries and the tackles and everything he gets through, but he's also his detail on his ruck work, on his ability to just do the unseen work and make other players around him better, and that's the sign for me of a quality back row. And he can play in the second row as well, so quality back row that'll go on. I think everyone's obviously talked about Prendergast. It's hard to look past him. I think for me, he is kind of the kind of player you want to nurture and not chuck in the deep end. He's got a ridiculously high ceiling, which is very exciting. He's got a very, very, very big boot. Good to see the spiral coming back in. He's a fan of that, but just the freedom he plays with. He's kind of like a cross with a lot of the out halves we have in Ireland at the moment. It's like you wouldn't box him into he was not really similar to any of them. So it's nice to have, again, something a bit different. He doesn't seem to be afraid to try things, and I think that will benefit him. But he'll have tough days, he'll learn hard lessons, but I think it's an exciting time to have such a talented guy who doesn't seem to have that fear, and it just means when he does get that opportunity to step up, he's not going to be afraid to be himself and enjoy playing. Very excited about him, and so hopefully he'll get a few runs out in the coming season for Leinster, and in maybe a few of the early games, and then see how he goes and try to progress him on, maybe with a few kind of more senior players around him. I think that, like, Leo Cullen's very good at doing that, giving you an opportunity with kind of a sprinkle of experience just to make you feel comfortable. It really matters on when you're kind of making that next step. Like, if the better players around you, they just give you confidence, and they don't make as many mistakes, and they're always kind of telling you the right things, so it just makes you more comfortable to have the best opportunity to kind of grasp that first go of playing in bigger games. So looking forward to seeing how he goes. And then lastly, Gleeson, I thought he's another massive talent. I think that next gen of Munster players are really, really bright, and I feel like all the academy systems and everything like that, it's quite cyclical, and I feel like they have a really good wave of young talent coming along. Like, they're coming off the back of winning a URC, and it's going to give a serious amount of life and belief into that next generation. So anyone you boys saw stuck out for you?
Gleeson is the name that we've all been talking about. Like, every time Quinny comes on, obviously he's got the Tipperary links, but I mean, he's just
a good hurler as well.
Yeah, well, Tipperary missed out. Maybe they're not securing him to the GAA, but GAA's loss is rugby's gain. Like, he's just a barreler.
Is there any world, James, in which we stick Prendergast on another team for a year and loan him out in the style of a good soccer team, like Man City? You go off and you play for a year and then you come back and you're ready to go.
So the only way if he goes, he's gone. So that's a dangerous game to even think about. But it's definitely, it's possible that, Nusafora or Andy Farrell decide, I want you playing first team a bit faster in the next couple of years. Who knows? But if he goes, it'll be a Joey Carby situation where it won't be coming back. So let's not wish that one into existence, because we want to hold on to this guy as long as we can.
Yeah, somebody else can go and he can take the first team place and we'll all be happy if that's the case.
Yeah, exactly.
James, good stuff. Thanks a million. Cheers.
Cheers, gents.
It's great stuff as ever from James Tracy, giving us an insight into what it's like to be in the scrum in the midst of two of the world-class props.
I never thought about the grunts and that sort of thing that you could utilise to your... I mean, you could start inventing your own code, essentially.
Well, having the ability to still speak and give feedback when there's like 2 megatons of pressure up through your hole.
It's fairly impressive.
Tricky.
Yeah.
9:39 this morning here on OTB AM. On tomorrow's show, Sarah Rowe is going to join us a day out from Ireland's big kickoff. Keith Tracy will talk to us about Shamrock Rovers, their game tonight. We've got a hurling final preview with Sarah Donovan, a neutral before we get the head-to-heads. We've got Irish Athletics. So Rashida Adeleke has been announced to sign with Nike. No idea how much money that is, but I hope it's an absolute fortune, because she totally deserves it. Gave up her final eligibility as an amateur, and so is racing in the Diamond League this week as well. We're bringing news on that too. Plenty more besides. Right now, former tennis pro Luke Jensen talking about Carlos Alcaraz beating Novak Djokovic. Have a tremendous Tuesday.
There is a sense that there is a new sheriff in town. 20 years of age, youngest Wimbledon winner since Boris Becker. Carlos Alcaraz beat Novak Djokovic 1-6, 7-6, 6-1, 3-6 and then 6-4, and charmed everyone, I think it's fair to say, as well, in his post-match interview. Very popular winner. Very happy to say popular guest on the show is Luke Jensen. He is with us. Hello, good to talk to you again. What's going on?
Big Joe, that's some serious head salad you got going there. I'm very jealous. That is some good hair. That's a head of hair.
Oh, listen.
Fantastic.
I'm tinning. There's a sunroof developing. I'll enjoy it while I have it.
That's right. You got to do it. You got to keep it.
Hey, this was something, wasn't it? In this neck of the woods, the BBC audience hit 11.3 million, throw in another 4 million on the player. I think, Wimbledon finals, word gets around, not least in social media, this is a good one. and everybody was like rushing to their screens because we know how good tennis can be when it's really good.
When you have some major royals there, you got James Bond, Brad Pitt, it's a big deal. Remember, the question was over the last couple of years is who is going to take over for Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, Murray? And we got a king. We got a king in the making. He won his first U.S. Open at 19 years old. We saw a really big match at the French, but he got tight, he got cramps, and he lost to Djokovic in the semis of the French. But boy, he wins Queens, and that's always an indicator, right? We've seen the best of the best when they win the Queens Club event on grass. That usually is kind of like the future Wimbledon champion. I didn't think it was going to be this year. I thought it was still Djokovic at the top of his game. We saw it early in the first set, winning 6-1. But eventually the kid, right? This kid's like a drone. He's from outer space. He's a Terminator. He hit 66 winners to Djokovic's 32. The errors were both in the 40s, so that wasn't a factor. But the offense from the Terminator was just massive.
Wow, that's an amazing stat. 66 winners to Djokovic's 32.
Yeah, and Djokovic isn't a real big offensive-minded guy as far as pace, but he will kind of place you off the court. He'll hit lots of winners with great placement, patience, wait for his right shot. But clearly, as the match went on, it was a classic match, 4 hours, 42 minutes, what you want to see in a Wimbledon final, going the distance, and some drama. You saw Djokovic break a racket on the net post, and so I don't know if he loses his Wimbledon membership because of this, but to see just all you want to see in a major final, especially at Wimbledon, and the future of the game being here and now, it's wonderful to see Alcaraz just being I just think he's a Terminator that the rest of the game has to adapt to.
One of the curiosities, I suppose, of tennis is that most tennis players do not grow up on grass courts, and Alcaraz is no exception. And this was just his 4th ever event on grass, and he won at Queen's in his 3rd, as you mentioned, and now he wins Wimbledon against the king of the centre court. I mean, it's kind of extraordinary to get your head around the fact that the last time Djokovic was beaten on centre court was Andy Murray back in 2013. So you're not just beating anybody out there. It wasn't a case of Djokovic was injured and you stepped into the vacuum. To do that on grass in his 4th event, that is super impressive. Even Djokovic joked afterwards in the post-match interviews that he kind of thought grass wouldn't be an issue for another couple of years yet. He's like, I know your trouble elsewhere, but I thought I had you here.
Well, I just think he has that growth mindset, Alcaraz. He's had a front row seat being a Spaniard to watch Nadal grow from a clay court player to an exceptional all court player, and he's won some Wimbledon titles too. So he saw a pathway, what is possible. And to have Nadal on speed dial, to have your coach, Juan Carlos Ferrero, who's one of French and one of the top players in the world in his day, and be able to transition, because Juan Carlos got to the finals of the U.S. Open. So you got a lot of people in your camp on speed dial to tell you how to transition your clay court game, a slower court game, to a fast court game. To me, the thing that really jumped out to me is his composure. You know, he lost the first set. He didn't panic. He was down a set point to go down 2-0 in the tiebreaker in the second set. Didn't panic, and he pulled that out. Then he gets on a run. Then they're just trading blows back and forth. And you're absolutely right. I mean, a lot of people were saying, you know, who are you going to take in this final? And I was like, how do you go against Djokovic, who hasn't lost on this court in 10 years? He hasn't lost at Wimbledon in 5. The last time he lost was on court 1 to Sam Querrey. It was just phenomenal. To me, you just start to see how the game is evolving with speed, power, mental toughness. And this kid really has every punch. And now it's up to the rest of the field, the rest of the young guys. How are you going to adapt your game mentally, tactically, and physically to battle that? And of course, Djokovic isn't going away. Like, he's not riding off to the sunset. He's going to re-gear up. He's going to gear up in every aspect and go, how do I beat Terminator?
Yes. You mentioned their mental toughness, and I think that's an area with Alcaraz worth pausing on and us teasing out for a minute, because at the French Open in that semi-final, which again was billed as a potential changing of the guard, Alcaraz didn't really show up, and that was publicly, at least, that was put down to body cramps and fatigue caused by the nerves. He felt that occasion, and body cramps ensued, and he didn't perform. So that's really interesting, because we're not therefore talking about somebody who's too young and stupid to know where he is and the significance of it. He's not young and fearless, clearly. Yep. And what's so impressive is, like, we're only talking a month later. There's every chance in like mere mortals, that semi-final experience would leave scar tissue. And we're talking centre court and Wimbledon and the Spanish king there. And, you know, like the whole world is watching him. And he loses the first set 6-1. It's like, this is like mortification. Now, at 20 years of age, that is mental toughness. All of that circling around. That is super impressive, Luke.
Yeah, he's a special kid. Remember, he's the youngest #1 in the world in the history of open tennis that started in 1968. So imagine all the greats that we've been watching come through Wimbledon and come through the game, and he's the youngest. And he still has room to improve. That's the scary part. He didn't serve a lot of aces. He didn't serve a lot of double. His serve is okay, but it's not a flamethrower. And he's a big kid. Like, he's big and strong. There's no reason, if you look at his motion, that he can't serve bigger, but it's more of a mindset. You know, he grew up on a slow court where the serve isn't a factor. So when he starts playing more hard courts, and of course more Wimbledons and grass court seasons, he's going to start opening up more aces, more unreturnables. The forehand alone, he hits 83% of his forehands are over 90 miles an hour. Now, that is massive. And so how do you defend against that? How do you play against that? It'll be very interesting, especially Djokovic, how he kind of gears up his game, because he's a mad scientist. He's going to try to figure out a formula to battle that at the US Open.
And give me some context on that. So 83% of his forehands over 90 miles per hour. What's your average top 20 guy doing?
Like 73, 74. You're not redlining. Most of the, you look at like Djokovic, he's like mid to high 80s, but most of the players from the ground are looking to put the ball in play and wait for an opportunity. Alcaraz is looking to create an opportunity every time he has a touch on the ball. So whether it's a forehand or backhand, he could absolutely hit a winner from any part of the court. And then you add his foot speed in, and he's got this brilliant drop shot, right? You see him use the drop shot a lot. So if he drop shots you and you don't hit a good reply to that, he may load up the cannon and aim right at you with a passing shot. So it's really something how it's evolved so fast, but he has a very good team around him, and he truly loves the sport. This isn't a guy that just kind of had a lot of talent, but he wants to do other stuff, like an early Agassi and things. This guy wants to play tennis. He wants to be a great tennis player. He's got 2 in his pocket at 20. It'd be very interesting if he starts going on a run, because he's proven he can win on all surfaces. He hasn't won the French yet, but that's just a matter of time because it's his favorite surface.
Yeah. There are times when you look at sports people and you think to yourself, geez, I'd love to be in their body and just experience that for a moment. I did look at Alcaraz and think, when the whole Brad Pitt included, and bloody hell doesn't he look good, when the whole crowd went, oh, when he would play the unexpected drop shot, and to be in his body when he knows in the milliseconds before he's going to pull that one out, he disguises it so well. I mean, it's joyous, and he did it at some kind of crucial moments as well. It wasn't just for the fun of it.
No. There was a time in the tiebreaker. I want to say it was 5-all. 5-5. It was deep in the second set tiebreaker. Remember, he's already down a set. If he loses his set, he goes down 2 sets to love to a guy who's 7-1 in finals in Wimbledon. And so this is a critical moment. The confidence this guy shows to pull that shot out of his bag, not to mention, it's not just having the ability to hit it, it's when you hit it. What I mean by that is your opponent has to be behind their baseline because they've got to cover some serious distance. You've got to be on or inside your baseline. And he hit this very delicate forehand drop shot, ended up being a winner. And Djokovic has serious wheels and will close on that ball if you don't hit it just right. He ends up pulling it off, and you can see the combination this kid has with the power, the mindset, and then the shot selection, when to play those drop shots. It's really, I keep saying this, but it really goes to the rest of the field. What are you going to do about this? What truly are you going to do when you have to battle so many different tactics this guy throws at you?
Okay, so this is the real deal. And when you talked about his serve there, and it's a mindset thing to develop a flamethrower, I presume from like a technical point of view, that won't be years and years of rigorous work. He could develop some flame relatively quickly.
Yeah, I mean, we saw like big second serves in the 120s on big points. He's a clutch player. To me, it's all situational. So when you're a big server, go back to Boris Becker, Goran Ivanisevic, all these guys, Roger Federer, Pete Sampras, they knew and had the confidence when to throw the bomb, right? When to fire the missile. So you're down 15-30, I'm going to go 135, 140, or it's 30, a big moment. You don't have to do it all the time. Serena Williams was outstanding with this, being able to wait for the right time to throw it out. You don't have to throw it every single time because you're out there for 4 hours plus sometimes, but it's just the mindset, when do I throw it? But he has such reliable ground strokes, what we call +1. So it's serve and then plus the rest of your game. His +1 is so strong that he's relied on that forever. So it's just like I said, he's a 2-time major champion right now. He hasn't even won his favorite surface major yet. That's the French. And it's just like as he grows, he's going to adapt and he's going to do different things that we haven't even seen yet. But there's nothing technically wrong with his swing. It's when and how you throw the big bomb.
I thought what was really interesting as well was, and it's to his credit, to be fair, how magnanimous Djokovic was afterwards, and also how generous he was in his comments about Alcaraz. I mean, I guess, to be fair, that is the culture generally in tennis. They are quite nice about each other. But Djokovic, it was put to him that people are saying that Alcaraz's style is like a really nice mix of Djokovic, Federer and Nadal. And Djokovic said, I would agree with that. I think he's basically the best of all three worlds. I haven't played a player like him ever, to be honest. Roger and Rafa had their own strengths and weaknesses. Carlos is a very complete player. I mean, I'm sure he didn't mean it in that way, but it almost read as, look, I'm done here. It's over. This is Terminator 2 here, and I'm done. And look, I'm sure he'll come back again, but that's beyond effusive there.
Yeah, and at that age, at Djokovic's age, in the mid 30s, I think he's past 35.
Yeah, he's 36. He is 36. Yeah,
36, and he knows there's less opportunities in front of him than behind him. Right, his glory days are over. Can he adapt any more than what he has? But it's true. It's what every player sees, what every expert in the industry sees from Alcaraz is, I just don't know how you beat the guy, because he's very consistent, he's accurate, and then he just possesses all this potential with the power. But guys will figure it out, right? You're on the tour, you watch him practice, you're looking for anything. And of course, we want him to stay healthy because he could go on one of these runs and win over 20 majors. It's very possible. He's got the Olympics. He's got to navigate now fame and fortune with people like Brad Pitt and James Bond and the Royals watching every tournament, every match he plays. He will be carrying the game. The women's side, they're still trying to figure it out. Is it Swiatek? Is it who? Yeah, everyone seems to win a major every time. Whereas on the men's side, Djokovic just says, I've never seen anything like this. And this is what we're going to see for the next 10, 15, maybe 20 years.
Yeah. And it was such not to underestimate his US Open, to be fair, but akin to Becker, akin to Federer beating Sampras. It was an announcement. It was an announcement on the big stage, and great players seem to have a habit of doing that for whatever reason. A question to ask you then. I always remember, it must be 15 years ago, who knows with these guys, but it was like a Time magazine were following around Uncle Tony, Rafa's coach at the time, and at one stage they were sitting, the journalist was killing some time with Uncle Tony, and some big screen at a tournament came on and we were showing slow motion replays of Federer, and Tony said, that guy there is never going to get injured, and we need to get Rafa more like that. And obviously that's easier said than done, and so approved, although Nadal has done pretty well. Where is Alcaraz on his technique and his athleticism, and how that's going to impact on his body over the next, well, let's you'd say 16 years anyway? How does he look to your eye in terms of that spectrum?
I think the biggest thing when you see Alcaraz is he feels the game differently, and I think the quote you had from Djokovic saying he's got a little bit of all of us, and he incorporates it, and he doesn't look like he's stressed, but we've noticed he's suffered from cramps in big moments. That will iron out. The more reps he gets on the big stage, in those big moments, and handling all the media requests, handling all the ticket requests, and all the sponsor. I mean, that is a job and a half. But he does have all these guys on speed dial because they respect him so much. They respect the kid didn't come in saying, I'm here to take over, right? Yeah. I'm not here to take part. I'm here to take over. And I love that quote. But he's kind and he's gentle and he high fives everybody, whether you're, a big four player or you're a qualifier. Alcaraz is very genuine and nice. And so the way he plays, in my opinion, he feels the game with a little bit of intensity of Nadal, but he floats a little bit around like Federer. There's no one in the history of the game that will ever play like Federer. He was just different. He breathed differently, and he is always concentrating on being relaxed. And Nadal was intense, right? Nadal had to feel the game with his OCD and his bottles, and he's walking around, he's picking at his shorts and his hair. And I mean, it was attritional to the end. Yeah, and you know what? He that's why he had to take so much time off. You look at his career, there are gaps because he would get just physically worn down. Alcaraz is very efficient. He's taken a little bit from everybody, and he feels it a different way. The other thing I truly believe, he's extremely coachable. He's still a sponge. He still has this growth mindset, a life learner, all these phrases that you want to hear when you're talking about a young talent. Most talents like, I made it, I made all this money, I'm really good, I've learned it all, I know it all. He doesn't. He has this mindset where I can get better, and that's what makes him dangerous. The upgrades, the Terminator, are common.
There's another interesting aspect, I suppose, in that he's 20 years of age, and you mentioned Becker, who won very young, and Agassi, who was prodigy as well. And both those guys burnt out and lost interest. Becker retired very young. Agassi played longer, but I mean, fell out of love pretty dramatically with the game and didn't exactly dedicate himself to the game at times, by his own admission. And what's been so interesting about the big four, if you want to include Andy Murray in that as well, is dedication and longevity to a fault. Andy Murray should have retired several years ago. The other three are just off the charts. So, kind of interesting. Have they just laid out a new map and a new way of doing it, or Alcaraz maybe is susceptible to burnout, and the whole world is about to genuflect before him and throw itself at him now, at every turn. That's the imponderable. Who knows? Does he go the way of Becker and Agassi, or is he very much I'm going to be vegan and be playing till I'm 45?
You know what? I don't know about the nutritional spot. I remember being this was last year, Southfield Station. I was in a grocery store, and he wasn't making too many good nutritional choices in his grocery shopping.
OTB AM.
The Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball.